Call this meeting of the Conroe Independent School, School District Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum of members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 6:01. If you'd like to join us, we will turn some time over to Ms. Tiffany Nelson for our invocation, followed by Ms. Misty Oldenweller for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we come to you before you tonight acknowledging that you are the giver and sustainer of life. You made us in your image and formed us in our mother's womb, created us to do good works in this world for your glory and for the benefit of others. We have so much to be grateful for this evening. We thank you for life and love, for family, friendship, and faith. We thank you for freedom and for those who have fought and continue to give their lives in service to protect our freedom. And as we prepare to celebrate our nation's independence, we are reminded of your amazing grace, abundant love, and the many blessings you have showered down upon this great nation over the years. We also thank you for blessings in this community and our school district with leaders, teachers, parents, and citizens who work so hard to provide the best education possible for our children so they can thrive and grow to the people that you've created them to be. Tonight, we ask once again for your wisdom and guidance as we talk about the business at hand. Reveal your way to us. Give us insight and knowledge. Keep us humble and kind, and direct us to speak the truth with gentleness and respect. Raise us up to be your salt and light in a world that is dim and bland. We pray all this in the great and powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Let's do the pledge. No, I have to come over to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Thank you, Ms. Nelson, Ms. Oldenweller. Moving on to item 2A, which is our special board recognition for our Destination Imagination Global Champions from Knox Junior High.
All right. First, I just want to acknowledge that there's something right about the pledge being said when you hear children's voices out there saying the pledge. Makes it so much better. I do also want to acknowledge my neighbor here tonight via live broadcast from Germany. Miss Chase is on a work assignment overseas and is joining us remotely this evening. She will be voting. I don't know if I can turn this.
I can see her, yes.
Okay, and I know that Ms. Godfrey will be able to see as well. She'll be voting by hand, but she can hear us and we'll be able to speak. When she speaks to us, though, she'll have to turn her speaker volume down. So it's going to be kind of hard to interact with her via conversation, but we're going to make it work, right? So we appreciate her being here.
I have one question for her. What time is it there in Germany?
It is.
I know the answer.
1 a.m.
1
a.m. That is a dedicated school board member who has worked all day.
Good evening and good morning.
Indeed. So thank you, Mrs. Chase, for joining us. We do appreciate it.
That would be fun.
And we will, now we're going to move on to our Destination Imagination Global Champions. And to make our introductions is Ms. Chris Reichelt, our coordinator of gifted programs and the leader of all things DI in Conroe ISD.
I don't know if I'll take that, but okay.
Wear it proudly.
Thank you. President Hubert, Board of Trustees, Dr. Knoll. Destination Imagination is a global educational nonprofit competition dedicated to inspiring the next generation of innovators, leaders, and creative problem solvers. DI provides unique educational experiences across 7 project-based challenges: technical, science, scientific, engineering, fine arts, improv, service learning, and early learning. The DI Challenge experience is 100% student-driven. The academic challenges are designed to teach the creative process. Each season, new and engaging team challenges that encourage students to explore their passions, discover their unique talents and abilities, and learn new skills are offered. Teams also participate in instant challenges, which are quick, creative, and critical thinking exercises that build teamwork and problem-solving abilities. During the 2022-2023 school year, Conroe ISD had 137 teams participate in DI, kindergarten through 12th grade. Before I go any further, I would like to mention Pat Sadeth, who is here with us today. Pat is our regional director for DI, also a former CISD teacher. Her support and love for DI is unremarkable. Congratulations to the Insoluble Fraction team from Knox Junior High, who won first place in Globals, which is world competition, in May, a truly monumental feat at its highest level. Their solution entailed a junior high school student named Jill, who was a perfectionist. A hyperbolic character named Stress lived inside Jill's head. Jill was afraid of the world seeing her imperfections, so she attempted to keep Stress hidden. But as time went on, Jill's stress increased and ended up in a fight or flight situation, which resulted in a panic attack. Stress, their hyperbolic character realized, caused the panic attack, which led to a downward spiral. The team built their embellishments like the Operation Game, with wood and programmed Christmas lights that connected the characters Jill, present and past, and Stress together during the skit. Stress heroically stepped in and helped Jill at her most vulnerable time and told her to seek help. Jill started to see a therapist to help manage her stress and anxiety. Jill has learned that it's all about the progress over perfection. The team finished the skit with Stress and Jill present, singing a parody to Will Smith's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Stress was Jill's hero, her very own Paul Bunyan. The team recognizes stress can be a huge part of junior high school and wanted to bring awareness to their viewers. Before I go any further, I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank the board for your continuous support in Destination Imagination. This program enables students who would not normally perform on an athletic field, but gives them a chance to shine in the academic arena. Tonight, I am proud to introduce to you the members of the Global Champion team. I am honored to recognize the Insoluble Fraction, coached by Tina Patel and Kelly Loftus. Team Insoluble Fraction, would you come forward? When I say your name, please step forward.
You're stuck in the front.
You're going to go right over here. So we're going to start with Karishma. Karishma. Madeline. Juliet. Caden. And who is not present today is Shane. President Hubert, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Knoll, I present to you the champions of the world.
So on behalf of the board, I want to say a few words and just tell you congratulations. What an accomplishment. We're all so proud of you. Like your coordinator said, what a challenge to do what you've all done and go and compete at this level. And I fully congratulate you and just thank y'all for your willingness to participate as a team. What teamwork that must have been. Just like
just like we see our teams play on the field, you're just like that, just playing at the academic level. And we just appreciate and thank you and congratulate you, and look forward to seeing more from you guys.
You're in it.
Sorry about that.
Y'all can come through too. Come, coaches, y'all come through as well.
Thank you for your support.
Congratulations. Thank you for your support. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. Great job. Fantastic job. I know how difficult this is.
Congratulations.
I know what an accomplishment this is. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Congrats to you.
Outstanding work. This was a major accomplishment.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you for what you do. Outstanding job. Thank you.
All right. Congratulations once again. Thank you. Thank you for your words, Ms. Dungan, as well. All right, moving on to item B. We're not done with our recognitions yet, Dr. Noel. We have our Ambassador Awards for Child Nutrition Department.
What an honor this is to recognize our great employees. It takes truly everyone in the school district to make opportunities like this for children. We have an opportunity tonight to recognize great employees from our Child Nutrition Department. And I'm going to invite Robin Hughes up to make our introductions.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. Thank you for recognizing our child nutrition ambassadors this evening. I'll first introduce Tomas Diaz-Bello. Tomas is an associate at Ford Elementary and has been with the district 4 years. Tomas is punctual, polite, and always ready to serve the students. He'll help at other schools when needed and is very dependable. He listens well and is willing to take on any task without question to get the job done. Tomas is a pleasure to have in our department. Okay, our next ambassador is Miss Juanita Seidel. Juanita is the manager at Caney Creek High School and has been with the district 20 years. She has a passion for making sure the students are provided with quality, nutritious meals. She's a very hands-on manager and works well with her staff. She can handle any challenges that come along, and she keeps the kitchen running smoothly. Juanita is always positive and makes it happen regardless of the circumstances. Her hard work and dedication to the district are appreciated. Okay, next we have Miss Waltine Woods. Waltine is the manager at Knox Junior High and has been with the district 9 years. She began the year at the Woodlands 9th grade and operated the kitchen smoothly and efficiently. She did an amazing job there and she was promoted to Knox later in the year. She has done a great job working with the staff and is respected by all. Waltine has high standards and will not accept anything less. She follows all the rules and regulations and expects the same from others. We're fortunate to have her in our district. And now we have Miss Christy Luna. Christy is the manager at Hope Elementary and has been with the district 5 years. Christy is dedicated and hardworking and brings many great qualities to the department. She's friendly, positive, and quick to respond. She takes initiative and solves problems. She keeps her kitchen in compliance with all regulations and has great food quality. Her energy and love for the students is very evident in the way she interacts with them each day. She's an amazing member of our team. Thank you.
So just on behalf of the board, I just wanted to say, and as a parent of 3, and on behalf of, I'm sure I speak for all the parents in here, thank you guys. You guys are truly the unsung heroes of this huge district, and it's amazing that you are able to accomplish the feat that you do, the entire nutrition department. We have 70,000 kids, and you have to feed them at least twice a day. So, and some of these kids, this is really the only real meal they get a day. So we really want to say thank you for that. And I also want to make sure that everyone understands this is one body, and you say one body, many parts. I would argue this is one of the most important parts. If our kids are hungry, we can't expect them to learn. So in order for us to be successful as a school district, this is one of the most important aspects of that, to keep the kids fed, good nutrition. So thank you on behalf of the parent, on behalf of the school board, on behalf of all the parents of the district. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, are you going for a picture?
I know, I did that too.
Come on through, we'd love to shake your hands.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership with your team. Thank you for raising our children and the work you do with them. We appreciate it. Thank you for being a team player and always stepping up when we need
Thank you once again, and thank you for your words, Mr. Williams. That was perfect. Moving on to our next Ambassador Award is our Custodial and Maintenance Department employees, Dr. Knoll.
All right. Here representing one of our largest departments in the school district. A lot of employees in our maintenance and custodial department that do such a great job providing safe and welcoming learning environments for our students and teachers each and every day. Marshall Schrader is here to make our introductions.
So Chief Blake, like I'd ask for your help a little bit. We occupy that back corner. Keep an eye on them, if you will, because they're going to want to sneak out, and I'd ask them all to come forward when we start shaking hands. Just keep an eye on them. So it's my honor, Mr. Hubert, Dr. Knoll, members of the board, it's my honor to present our Ambassador Awards for the Maintenance Custodial Department. Kick it off, James, and I was told to be very careful with pronounce the CH at the first of his name. James Brad Chittenden. James worked for Child Nutrition Department. He's the Equipment Maintenance Department. They maintain all of our kitchen equipment as well as appliances throughout the district, ice machines, etc. Coordinates all of our efforts very well in that area. He helps his team succeed and loves to teach his other team members. We appreciate him very much. From our IPM Life Safety Team, Gilbert Pacheco. Gilbert is a IPM certified applicator. His professionalism and his work detailed to all levels. He has knowledge that supports his every team member. And he's relied on to support the IPM department. From our general maintenance department, Eric Alcanter. Eric's always willing to help. He's always willing to share his knowledge with his other staff members. He's been nominated and received several Teachers Achieving Excellence Awards. He continues to be an asset to our department. From South Custodial, Nellie Ortiz. Nellie has a hard job. She maintains the Woodlands High School athletic area. If anybody's ever been in athletic areas, boys in athletic areas, you kind of know what that entails. But she does an amazing job for us and has a wonderful attitude. From North Custodial, Anna Ocampo Navarrete. If she looks very familiar to many of you, it's because she is one of our custodians here at the administration building and takes care of this building and does a wonderful job. Jose Mesa. Jose Mesa is one of our plumbers for our maintenance department. Jose is always willing to be on call, help wherever is needed, after hours support. He does whatever it takes to get the job done, and he's just an asset to our department. And last but not least, Linda Lim. She's not able to be with us tonight, but Linda is a custodian at Snyder Elementary. She's swing shift custodian. Always does an amazing job, always has a smile on her face, just a great attitude. So Linda Lim, thank you so much. The handshaking tour. So I've asked them all to come up.
Perfect.
All right, well, I wrote a little definition of the custodial and maintenance department. The definition is they are a multitasking educational group of rock stars who live to inspire, work from sun up to sundown. They're the first to arrive and usually the last to leave. They always make us feel cool, and they keep everything in tip-top working condition so we can teach and learn. Many times our custodians go unnoticed throughout the day, but you, each and every one of you, are incredibly important. And through the work that you do each day, even though you're in the background, we couldn't operate without you, and your dedication and maintaining our facilities is second to none. You don't go unnoticed by us. So on behalf of the board and everyone who enters our facilities, I want to say thank you. Congratulations.
Seventh grade basketball.
Yeah, I feel on my knees.
Squeeze in. How you like each other? All right, who's going to start the handshaking line?
Here you go.
All right, hang on. Oh, Gilbert's going to go. Gilbert, you first. There we go. Follow on Gilbert.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for your year of service, and we appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Appreciate your team.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Your mentorship.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all are my favorite. You always have all the keys.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you so much for everything you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You don't have to hear it enough. Y'all really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Again, thank you for your leadership.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for what you do. Congratulations. Thank you all for what you do. Thank you. Keep us busy, no doubt.
Congratulations once again. Thank you, Ms. Wegman, for your words. And Dr. Knoll, I'd also like to add that we got a couple of hats last year, and I think they're the sharpest hats in the district. I've worn mine, and for some reason there are community things in my home, and that hat has been a community hat in my home too, with my sons and my wife too at baseball games. So they're really nice. All right, moving on to item 3, which is our citizen participation. Ms. Godfrey, we've had a few people sign up. Perfect. During this portion of the meeting, patrons who have signed up in advance may address the board in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, and Board Policy BED. For comments regarding an issue on tonight's posted agenda, the board will defer its discussion of this issue until the item is reached on the agenda. For comments related to an issue that is not on the board's posted agenda, the board cannot deliberate or make a decision related to that issue. We ask that speakers address their comments to the board and not to the audience. If any speaker's comments are regarding a complaint, the board directs you to its policy regarding complaints, which can be found on the district's website. Please be aware that if your purpose in addressing the board is to seek a remedy for your complaint, the board cannot discuss or respond to your concern until you have met the requirements of the appropriate district. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to present their comments to the board. Screens around the room will be displayed for the speaker's time. When the countdown timer reaches 0, the next speaker will be called. Ms. Godfrey, will you please call our first speaker tonight?
Joseph Liu.
Afternoon, Dr. Liu.
Good evening. I would like to thank President Hubert, the members of the school board, and Dr. Knoll for the opportunity to appear before you all again. My name is Joe Liu. I am a physician and a Conroe ISD district resident now for almost 30 years. I have 2 children who currently attend schools in the school district. I would like the board to be aware of the fact of the lack of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, or better known as AAPI, representation at Conroe ISD. I previously reported an incident of racial discrimination perpetrated against my son by the orchestra teacher at Collins Intermediate School. At that time, I was assured by Dr. Knoll and other senior district staff officials that racism does not occur at this school district. However, AAPI currently represents over 5% of the total student body and is projected to be the fastest growing subpopulation of Conroe ISD. Of the 42 administrators on the district's organizational leadership chart and the 7 members of this school board, there is exactly 0 AAPI members among the 49 leaders of the school district. I repeat, 0. When Admiral Mike Mullen, and retired chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, our highest ranking military officer, was questioned why the general staff did not reflect the overall officer population, his response was, quote, ducks pick ducks, unquote. No, he was not a University of Oregon Duck alumni, nor was he referring to college football. He meant that people tend to racially choose people like themselves, albeit sometimes unconsciously. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not support racial quotas, nor do I want you to hire an AAPI just for the sake of having an AAPI on staff. But what I do expect from you is equality, regardless of race, and hiring personnel based on merit, and not to discriminate against Asians. James Otis, an American patriot in 1761, coined the phrase, quote, taxation without representation is tyranny, unquote. In 1765, another American patriot, Patrick Henry, wrote, quote, no taxation without representation, unquote. These principles are still very much appropriate today. I've been paying taxes to Conroe ISD. I'm sorry, okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Candace Franklin.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Candace Franklin, and my son is 9 years old and is dyslexic and has dysgraphia. We worked for 1.5 years to get our son diagnosed. Conroe ISD failed to properly diagnose him. We finally got a diagnosis through an independent educational evaluation, and the district conveniently disagreed with the diagnosis. They told us, well, he's passing. Okay, so you're going to let him fail before giving him services that are needed? Do you understand what that would do to his self-confidence? Then they told us, well, we tried reaching out to your diagnostician, but to defend her diagnosis, but she never responded. Really? That's funny, because she replied to my text message during the ARD within minutes and said that she would ask the district to pick a different date because she was already scheduled for an evaluation that day, to which the response was no. Our campus decided to roll 6 out of 17 of my son's accommodations into a 504 because the decision to disagree with the IEE diagnosis. They could not label him as dyslexic or with dysgraphia. I've given you samples of writings and a testimony that he gave before the House and Senate committees. We chose to walk away from that ARD extremely frustrated and join the Texas Dyslexic Coalition in making changes to the system. My son bravely gave his testimony in front of the House and Public Education Committees and Senate Education Committees. He shared how frustrating the process was for him and how uncomfortable our IAE diagnostician made him. Unlike his campus, how comfortable the IEE diagnostician made him, unlike his campus diagnostician. He also got an impromptu meeting with the Lieutenant Governor where he shared his frustration with him as well. We returned to the Capitol to watch the Senate and the House vote HB 3928, the Beckley-Wilson Act, and pass it through. The families from all across the state went to Austin to join us, but a large portion of this group was from Conroe ISD. Saturday, June 10th, the governor signed our bill into law. My son knew that us going to fight for change at the Capitol would not help him, but it would help other families get students diagnosed properly. He said that helping other students is what gave him the courage to give his testimony. I'm here this evening to share my disappointment with you and how poorly you're serving the students with learning disabilities, but be ready to make changes because those students that you have allowed to fall through the loopholes have fought to force the State Board of Educationers to upgrade the dyslexic handbook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Alexander Harris.
is there a reason we're only doing 2 minutes?
It's just what we're doing. We just have 2 minutes today.
Boy, that was disappointing. Dear school board and leadership, on June 12th, 2023, Governor Abbott signed HB 900 into law that prohibits explicit materials in the school. The new law defines library standards which prohibits possession, acquisition, and purchase of books that have ultimate sex acts, which are obscene, sexual conduct, etc., etc. Books like The Perks of a Wallflower, which includes a rape, abortion, and then testifying and pretending like it never happened with a minor, and Ramona Blue, who is experimenting to find out her sexual orientation. I think it's very, very sad and disappointing, like the earlier person who spoke, that we must create laws to define community standards and values to the majority of the school board to do what is right for our children.
Paul Laskowski.
I'll just leave it here. Good evening. Thank you for your service and your time from far away and nearby. This evening you will be hearing about yet another complaint about books. In this case, a fallacious argument that CISD science books and curriculum are teaching religion rather than science. I would love to spend this time defending centuries of scientific discovery, that the scientific theories and hypotheses in question have no bearing on religion or religious practices, and that our process for approving and implementing TEKS for science is robust. But I trust that most of you already understand these points, so I'll highlight the big picture instead. This complaint represents much more than one individual's view. It embodies an entire Christian nationalist movement that claims we've taken God out of the classroom. It is an ideology driven by fear, which can only be assuaged by incrementally shoving God into the classroom. This fear drives mass hysteria, book challenges, you just heard, by the dozens, the villainization of teachers, libraries, and administrators, the demonization of LGBTQ+ adults and children, the frenetic and hollow condemnation of CRT, and the relentless push for private school vouchers, 10 Commandments posters, and other Christian nationalist legislation. We are witnessing Christian nationalism par excellence in CISD, and it is an embarrassment. I hope that you who aligned with this movement during your campaign last year will finally see later this evening the dangers of ideology void of reason and logic. We don't need petty displays of ignorance and narcissism from anyone. We need more books that reach more children. We need more opportunities for more students. We need more support for more public education that embraces more scientific discovery. We need more classrooms with more teachers, with more pay. We need to care more by voting for the bond in development this November because our children deserve more.
Thank you.
Louis Pedraza.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Yes, sir.
I actually have submitted an information request, and I copied all of the board members. And I just wanted to kind of explain. It's a general, I know there were a lot of requests in there, but basically I do want to look at teacher retention, and I'll explain why, if I have time. Some general financial data. Last bond election, how was that money really spent? There were specific questions about that. And then the bond committee financial, how we did have a bond committee, which I'm a part of, and I felt like the bond committee was really driving towards it's kind of like when I was working, we knew what the result was going to be, so let's drive for that. I just felt like it was very staged and not independent necessarily. So, and then I'll just address one thing. I don't demonize teachers, librarians, administrators. I don't. I have a lot of respect for them. I always have and I always will. Okay, but it seems like different people come and talk and say, we're disrespecting teachers. We are not disrespecting teachers. But we do want transparency. We do want to know what's going on in the district. So to blindly just give us a number and say, hey, this is the way it is, trust us without any verification, that's not the way I operate. I was, by training, I spent 35 years solving problems. I was a chemical engineer for a major oil company, and basically, I'm not really, I look at data. That's what I do. And why am I here? Because my kids, or my grandkids at this point. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm just not going to let it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole May. Just gonna wait till it goes through, if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay, so these handouts are in reference to HB 3928, which is also known as the Beckley-Wilson Act, the dyslexia law. So as a member of the Texas Dyslexia Coalition, which is a statewide dyslexia coalition it's a grassroots coalition made up of parents throughout the state of Texas that kind of ran into the same troubles, right? So it seemed that it was kind of systemic. No judgment on anything, just it's systemic, right? And so we made a run for this bill in the 87th legislature. We got very close. We did get a revision of the dyslexia handbook in the SBOE, which really started to turn the ship. But we still see loopholes. And so what we did was we went back again. And this time the legislature really listened. And we passed through the House with a unanimous vote. We passed through the Senate also with a unanimous vote. So we're pretty pleased with that. We worked very hard. I basically ate it, lived it, breathed it for about 3 months. I'm sure my husband's glad that it's all over, and yet here I am. So, I sent you guys all an email that has all of this in there. But one of the handouts that I gave you is from Texas Disability Rights. They presented this packet to the SBOE today. So it has a good deep dive into the bill. The bill is not that long. But it is pretty meaty, so that will take you section by section through the bill. And then the other graphic is the 8 changes that we'll be expecting in the state of Texas, and that was put out by the Texas Dyslexia Coalition. Just some basics on HB 3928. It covered 3 areas: dyslexia evaluations, providers of students with dyslexia, and parent notices regarding the rights of parents of public school students with disabilities. So we're pretty pleased with this. Thankful to Trustee Odenweller, who walked with us through every step of the way. We basically part-time lived in Austin. So thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Krausen.
Ephesians 4:17, speak the truth in love. I always hope that I can do that. I got to be reminded of it every day. Luke 8:17, there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. I joined, some of y'all know me, see me around at the bond, well, you guys aren't supposed to be there, the board, but I joined the bond committee for a lot of reasons. One, because the taxes are way too high. But another reason, real quick, was that porn was allowed in the elementary school where my granddaughter was by Zoom during COVID. The leadership was running that on Zoom. There was 80 plus kindergarten through 4th grade students and parents, and I assumed that it was not, that it was, things were monitored closely by the IT department. That was not the case, sadly. I reported it right away. I knew one of the board members really well immediately when it happened. Didn't get any contact from the school, but Dr. Knoll called me back within probably an hour, but it was about a month later before anybody else contacted me, and it never was resolved. What I really hear about real quick is pushbacknation.com is a podcast, and there's a message that needs to be out. Pushbacknation.com. A lady in a school district here in Texas, her daughter was there were a lot of secrets being held by the school about situations within the school, and I saw that a year ago with a presentation by Representative Steve Toth as well. I'm out of time. Pushbacknation.com. Listen to the podcast there. Pushbacknation.com. Thank you.
Jock Holloway.
Hello, my name is Jacques Holloway, a rising junior of the Woodlands High School. Today I wish to reveal a fact that is likely unknown to the school board and the parents of the school district. This fact highlights one of the biggest problems in the district but goes unreported by teachers, administrators, and parents. Why? Because this problem affects the children of the district, and young children do not often advocate for themselves. I am aware of this problem because my brothers and I have attended CISD schools for over a decade since kindergarten. The problem is this: every day, hundreds of children in the district fail to eat an adequate lunch. Due to the poor quality of the school lunches. Sure, they may eat a cookie, potato chips, or a slice of pizza when it is available, but oftentimes the students never eat the actual entree. They may order it, but they throw most of it away. In fact, it is likely that there are parents in this room who do not realize that their kids are eating the lunches that kids are not eating the lunches that they are buying. It is not wise to assume that the kids are simply being picky, as my brothers and I are not picky at all. In fact, I am confident that if the adults in this room were required to eat the school lunches every day, it would result in a mass movement for higher quality ingredients and meals. If I'm being honest, the fact that CISD has allowed thousands of kids to eat little or no food during this school day may be the biggest problem CISD has on its hands. It is time for CISD to change the school lunches. A simple, cost-effective change would help thousands of kids in the school district. If the school board cannot envision a solution to this problem, I can help them. Large pots of rice and beans is just one example of a meal solution that would be a drastic improvement to the current school lunches. That would be healthier and taste much better. There is no drawback to changing the lunches. For the sake of CISD students' health and even their academic performance, please consider making real improvements. If you do not think this is a real problem, please, I urge you to try the school lunches yourself for a week or two. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Fuska.
Good evening. I thought I'd give you a break from special education this evening and talk to you about soccer at the junior high level. Right. Soccer only goes on for about 6 weeks, with only around 18 students making the team out of around 50 to 100 students trying out. When football has 6 teams per grade at York Junior High and only 1 soccer team, kind of makes you stop and think and question, why can't there be more teams, especially when there's enough students to populate those teams? Also makes you stop and think when about a quarter of the team is made up of students who have never played soccer before. These students are usually football players or students who play other sports so they can get more conditioning in. Junior high is a place where students start to find their identity, and a big part of that is through sports. It does a disservice to the students that don't make the team because coaches want to use the soccer season as conditioning. I would ask you to look into adding more teams, and like football, have an A and B team, and maybe the B team is used for conditioning. I kind of lie about special ed. So after watching the last month's meeting, I'll just leave you with this food for thought. I wish you brought the same passion and conviction to fix the broken special ed system that you do for vouchers. Imagine the good you could do if you brought that same passion advocating for students with special needs. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Tina Orbaugh.
Hi. I do not have a book today, but I wanted to tell you because I go to Austin every week, and I have been going there since January until the end of May. And so we have a lot of things that did happen, and some for the educational system. Praise God for protecting the kids. And one was SB 14, ban chemical and surgical gender transition treatments on kids. Why is that even a question? I don't know why. To me, that's common sense. I don't know why you would have anything like that on kids, but we need to realize that the education that these kids are getting about transgender is different. And what we are finding out through the transgender is it's the evilness that is coming out. And it's not all transgender, it's those people that are trying to make these kids mutilate their bodies so that they become somebody that they're not. You can't say you're a woman if you're a man, and you can't say you're a man if you're a woman. It's just common sense. But what I'm trying to tell you is this: people don't know this. So some of them are very, very confused, and I think a lot of it has to deal with education. We did very well about getting the porn books out, so that's very good. We, in Conroe ISD, I think we have over 50 out, which is the porn and the sexual explicit books for the kids. No biological man competing in women's sports. I go last year, it was up through high school, and now we're up through college, which is very, very good. No kids at drag shows because they are promoting sex for these small kids so that they can do a pedophile is okay. That's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Sorba.
Cassandra Crowe.
Hello. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's been 13 months since I came and spoke before you guys. I cannot believe it's been that long, and I know you hate seeing me up here, so it probably hadn't been long enough. But my name's Cassandra. President Hubert, Dr. Knoll, and board, thank you so much for letting me speak to you today. I have nothing written down. I was just kind of like, I'll just let the spirit move me and see if I want to say anything. But a couple of things were said. I guess I can follow up. One thing that's frustrating sometimes about just this format is that, like, I have a law degree, right? So I'm more of a, like, Socratic. I want to have, like, dialogue. And so it's difficult when there's just somebody up here expressing grievances or recognition or anything, and you're not able to, like, have dialogue with the people. So that's one of the things that's frustrating. And then people come up here and say things and people can't really refute them. So I have no idea what a Christian nationalist is. I've been hearing about that recently. So somebody mentioned that earlier. I have no idea what it is. He probably thinks I am one, but I don't know what it is. But if that means that you're proud of your faith, then yeah, I guess that's what I am. I am also white and straight. I don't think that has anything to do with my character or things that I bring to the table or anything that I should be judged on. I was very alarmed last month when a teacher did come up and really did condemn people that were white, straight, and Christian. I think it's, I know you guys signed a pledge against racism. I think that's important. I think it's important that all of those protected classes, whatever they are and however the racism looks or however the discrimination looks, that that's not okay. And so where I understand that this teacher has a freedom of speech and she can feel that way and she can say it, it was alarming that she knew that this was a safe venue to say something and that there would not be any recourse for her. So that was really alarming. I also thank you, Dr. Knoll, for taking the lead and for addressing the book issue, even though the majority of your board didn't require that of you. Really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
And I know it's not because you hate teachers or librarians. It was the right thing to do. Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Ms. Crow. That's it? All right, very good. All right. Moving on to item 4, which is our consent agenda. Unless I've missed it, I haven't heard from anybody to withdraw anything from the consent agenda, so I'd entertain a motion.
So move, accept consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Stacy's.
I can't see her. All I can see is the back of the screen. I'm just like,
Oh, it's up. Okay.
I'm rooting
Lynn's
for her.
in.
I don't know.
Lynn's, okay.
Okay.
Any opposed by the same sign? Okay, motion carries unanimous. All right, moving on to item 5, which is administration. Consider approval of a memorandum of understanding between the Conroe Independent School District and the Montgomery County Emergency Communication District on the RAV panic button system.
All right, we'll ask Mr. McCord to come up. This is a safety issue that I want to really give kudos to Mr. McCord, Ethan Barton, Chief Blakelock, really our whole safety team. This is an area where we've been ahead of the state. Mr. McCord is going to share with us a new state law, but we've been acting in front of it, and I'm proud of that, and share with us a little more information.
Thank you, Dr. Knoll. I'm excited to be here tonight, and I think I have something that you're going to be interested in talking about the RAVE 911 silent panic alert technology. And this is a technology that we have piloted before. We piloted it in the past at Grand Oaks High School and also at York Junior High. It was done successfully in the past, and we've been interested in it. We're looking at the implementation strategies and what we need to do to make it happen, and the time is now. And so I am here tonight really asking for your approval of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Montgomery County Emergency Communications District. In short, the Montgomery County Emergency Communications District is working with districts across Montgomery County to pay for part of what the cost would be for the school districts to implement RAVE 911 in their districts. So if you approve this, it would allow us to finalize payment of our required portion for the 3 years and to move forward with implementation. So a spoiler alert for this presentation is that our cost at the end of this presentation is going to be $0. But so I'm putting the cart before the horse. So ELISA's law, also known as Senate Bill 838, requires Texas school districts such as us to implement a panic alert system and to do it by the year 2025, 2026. Because of the legwork done by Chief Blakelock and Ethan Barton specifically, we're really poised to be able to implement it 2 years ahead of what the state is asking us to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it actually is. So what is it? It's an application that can be downloaded to a phone by school staff, not students but staff, that will allow them to report a variety of emergencies. What I also like as a former building principal is it also offers us non-life-threatening emergency communications that we can share with a situation, one that happens across the county routinely, and that is, for example, when the power goes out at a school and I need to communicate information to staff and do it quickly, maybe if I don't have a PA system. So it would be for school staff only. It would be optional. It is worth noting that staff can elect to receive messages without downloading the app if they choose to not download it. So how does it work and what does it do? So if I'm on campus, the campuses are geo-fenced. So there's an imaginary computerized fence around each campus. And if I activate the RAVE 911 app within that geo-fenced area, it will alert all the campus staff, whether they be teachers, administrators, counselors, child nutrition workers, custodians, everybody, that there's some type of emergency. So it notifies 911 immediately, campus-based staff. It gives first responders access to campus maps and allows first responders to keep receiving real-time ongoing information about what's going on inside the campus. So if you approve the MOU, training would occur at the beginning of the 23-24 school year. Chief Blakelock his group has been working on the training, so it would cover a number of things that staff would need to know about the RAVE 911 app. So here is the cost. And so The Montgomery County Emergency Communications District is paying for a lot of the costs for districts, including us. So we basically would be responsible for 25% the first year, 35% the second, and 50% for the third year. So over 3 years, it would cost us around $88,000 with their help if we did have a grant. But alas, we have a grant. It's called the SPAC grant, which was given to us as an opportunity about a year ago today. With the help of Chief Blakelock and Ethan and Dana Boyer, we applied for the grant, and we successfully received the grant in an amount of funds of $116,184 to be able to apply toward the RAVE 911 app. So excited about that, appreciate the efforts, which brings our total cost to $0. We would not need the entire $116,000, but it wouldn't cost us anything other than the effort we put forth to make it happen. So I'm here for any questions, and just once again, the reason for being here is to give you a little information about it. I know we've talked about it off and on, and to ask for your approval of the memorandum of understanding.
Do we have a motion?
I just have a quick question. Is that permissible? Or
Yeah, absolutely, it is. If we could get a motion first,
Okay.
and then you ask, and,
Sure.
and then open up for questions.
Second.
Do you have a motion and a second? Okay.
I was just curious about the grant. Since there's the discrepancy in the total, where does the rest go? Can we put it towards something else,
It's
or
very
is it specific to the app?
It's very specific for this, so we just wouldn't use the entire grant.
Okay.
It just works out. It works out great. It
Okay.
really is great. You always hear about unfunded mandates.
Mm-hmm.
This is somewhat of a funded mandate.
Yeah,
So,
it's just weird that it gives 116, but it only costs 86.
well,
I'm like, let's use the rest.
Right.
Well, but that is with the help of the
Yeah.
Montgomery County Emergency Communications District.
Great.
Otherwise, we would be paying the delta. So kudos
Okay.
to the Montgomery County Emergency Communications District.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be highlighted probably even more is just this, we're fortunate to have the relationship that we have with the county, you know, and from all the different departments, but specifically they go by 911. That's how they refer to themselves. So, but to have this relationship where and they're not doing this just for us, it's for all the districts in the county, but it's just a great partnership. And as Mr. McCord mentioned, without their help, we'd be paying this out of pocket even with the grant. So we appreciate them very much.
And as though it is required. It is
Yes.
required. We're just ahead because we've been efforting over the last few years.
Can you go back a slide, please, Mr. McCord? So is this a one-time, did I miss that? Is this a one-time?
We would pay
payment?
for the 3 years up front. So we would be covered for 3 years. So noting it is required by law, the obvious question is what happens in year 4? So I'm fairly confident, although I do not know for sure, that in year 4, the way things are going, that there would be safety monies available for us to pay for this going forward. But all I can really tell you right now, it costs around $80,000 a year right now, and it is required by law. So presumably in year 4, 5, 6, and 7 and beyond, it would still be required. And we would be responsible, as would every school district in Texas, to continue Alyssa's Law or 838 going forward.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
All right.
Any other questions? All right, very good. I know that serving on the Safety and Security Committee with several board members as well, we've been through this a few times and went over this, and I know that the teachers and administrators were very positive about this. We had some really good conversations about how it would be implemented and how it would work, and it was very well received on the committee as well. So, all right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McCord.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 6A, which is our teaching and learning. Consider adoption of instructional material in phonics grade K through 5.
All right, we will continue on a journey that we started back a few weeks ago, and I'll ask Dr. Edith Salceda Upshaw to make our presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Knoll. President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll, as we queue up the presentation, we will talk to you about our recommendation for phonics.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
How'd you know that? Like work anniversary?
No.
Oh.
Marriage.
I'm very blessed that our anniversary will be a federal holiday, so we get it off. Yeah,
Oh.
it's nice.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I was in her wedding.
You know how it works. You let it sit for a minute, it kicks you
I
out,
like to make
logs you
her,
out.
I like to
There
make
you
her
go.
blush when I can.
Okay, good. That makes sense.
We started this journey last month and talked to you a little bit about we were going to be coming again back in June to bring a recommendation. So I just want to remind you that last month we came forward, we had a timeline where we reviewed with you what would be our process, which normally when we adopt materials takes us about a year to do. We expedited this process in about a month because of the release of the commissioners. Materials came out on March the 31st, so we were able to move forward. So just a quick reminder, when we came last month, from your feedback, we did send out communication about this adoption via our social media outlets, via media outlets, principal newsletters. Not only did we have this so you could come in person to look at the materials, some people just need to touch what they're going to get and look at those options. They want to see those the phonic tiles or the consumables that students would get. And also we had a virtual option. So people were able to, if they couldn't make it to JET, they could log on for what the publisher had given us so people could see. So just want to remind you that we did that. And then tonight we're coming to you to provide for you the information that we received from the process and come to you with a possible recommendation for you to decide whether you want us to move forward. So with that said, before we go into the details of the committee and what results we received, I want to recognize the people that came forward that helped us in this timely manner. Many of the teachers came in their off-duty time a couple of weeks ago to give us feedback with the publishers. And we have some members not only from the focus group, from the teacher aspect, but also from our district. So they could please stand at this time. This is not an easy feat to come together and make the decisions of many teachers in our district. That is the most important thing we do, which is teach our students to read. So with that said, just a reminder, these are the list of the commissioners' products that we reviewed. These were the only ones that we put forward because this is what met the rubric. And so a reminder that there was 3 ways to be able to do this: meet the commissioners' list, or write something in between of what you have to fix it and get it approved, or write your own. So we decided to look at the supplements that were, or the supplemental materials provided by the commissioner. These were the sample questions that were given to our educators out there. And their number one choice of the questions that they received was Benchmark. Benchmark was one of the publishers that you see, and that was their number one choice. These were the questions provided to the community survey, and also their number one choice was Benchmark. So with that said, even though it was the number one choice and there was a complete gap between Benchmark, we went ahead and took the top 3 publishers, which were Benchmark, Amplify, and Reading Horizons, and we brought them forward to the district professional staff, the focus group, and we gave them time to ask all the questions. So if you've ever been in a room with teachers to talk to you about reading instruction, they get very passionate. We had to time them because we had to make sure that they had the equal amount of time. After they asked all the questions, what do we get? How much do we get? Is it every year? All those things, because as you remember from the survey, teachers want the things, right? And with that said, that focus group voted to see what they would move forward, and their number one choice was Benchmark as well. So with that said, this is what the kit looks like. I won't go into further details, but this is what makes teachers excited. Now remember, you as a school board asked us to send out a literacy survey, and teachers said the number one thing they said was they want the things and they want it quick and easy prep. Those little booklet things in that box that are in those plastic envelopes, there's your lesson. And I think that's one of the things that teachers spend countless amount of time preparing that. They also get consumables every year, and they get letter tiles, and that's just a few things that they get from this. One thing that was also popular, which was the second thing that came out in the literacy survey, were those decodables. Those are the little books that get sent home with the skills that you learn in phonics, and we get them every year with this adoption if we choose to move forward. So what's our financial commitment if we decide to move forward? So I need to share with you a couple of things. There's an English financial commitment and there is a Spanish financial commitment, and then we're going to combine them so you can see the total. We provided for you a 2-year, a 4-year, and a 8-year amount and sum. We provided for you what is required by the commissioner that we implement, and that is K through 3. However, we know that reading is important all the way through. We've had representatives from our committee all the way through 5th grade. The 4th and 5th grade teachers were very vocal that they would like materials as well. So this is just something for you to share. You as a board would make the decision how we move forward. Our pick or our ask of you would be the 8-year commitment. The next time we adopt literacy materials as a whole will be in 2030 when we go through this process, and they will be implemented in 2031. So that's why we ask for the 8-year, but again, as a board, you can choose to make that decision. In Español, the product is called Taller de Fonética y Gramática. We currently have these in Conroe ISD in our bilingual classrooms. These were provided and funded through Title III funds because it was a supplemental material. So we already have this in CISD, so that's a win. So with that said, since we already have it, for next year, we bought it, so we only need to fulfill that subscription, we need another year of additional funding to be able to move it forward. And then it would catch up to the adoption of Benchmark with Taller, and then we would have an overall commitment, which is this slide right here. So combined for English and Spanish materials, for K through 3, for an 8-year commitment would be $3.2 million, and for a K through 5 commitment, it would be a 3.6 or 3.7. So our recommendation from the district focus group to you would be a 3.7 million commitment for 8 years. Do we have any questions or any additional information that I can provide you? Yes, ma'am.
Is there any concern that taking an 8-year commitment, what if we find in year 3 that there are new products that the commissioner has approved that we like better, or, I mean, maybe our teachers end up not liking it as much? Do we have any concern that we'd want to switch halfway through? I mean, 8 years is a long time. That's a lot of students.
Absolutely. So we have done that in past adoptions, and we have done it only for a 4-year commitment. And the only thing that I would let you know as a board, because I think it's important to be transparent with this, is the price that we get per kit today for 4-year will not be the price in the next 4 years. So I could be asking for possibly double the amount. We just don't know. That's one of the things that we've learned in gap years when, let's say, for example, they were going to give you the subscription or the proclamation. For example, science is one right now. We're in a gap year, and that gap year means, well, we didn't go through the process, and you were supposed to go through it 2 years ago. When they come to price you, it's substantially different. So that's the only thing that I would let you know, but we have done that with past adoptions, because sometimes we've learned that it's not possibly, teachers have feedback at that point, and we reconvene. We've done that, yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect, thank
Dr.
you.
Upshaw, you're asking for a motion to adopt this, correct?
Adopt this, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
can we need a motion?
I motion to adopt as recommended.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Motion is second. All right, discussion. Please.
I just had a question. Is there a specific deadline that we need to do this by to make this decision?
We have to implement a systematic phonics program by day 1 of school.
Okay.
And currently, when we came in February, Trustee Nelson, we knew that the materials we have out there are not substantial.
Okay.
They're watered down. So we need materials to be able to implement this to the fidelity of the requirement.
Got it. I could be wrong, but isn't there some sort of legislation or something that is in place or that's in the works for something pertaining to this?
It would depend which legislation.
Okay. I guess I'm not up to speed on what that is, because I feel like, I'm not sure which one it is, but I feel like there was something I heard that had to do with.
SB3 in, sorry, didn't mean to scare you. SB3 in, I believe it was 19, indicated that we had to have a systematic direct instruction of phonics. And it was leaning towards and moving towards the science of teaching reading. Could you scoot back just a little bit, please? Thank you. In this legislative session that was signed by the governor, they passed HB 1605. And in 1605, in SB3, they allowed us a kind of a patch to fill in what we were missing, give us the opportunity to patch our work while we continued to go through. And that's where we are now. we are moving towards the science of teaching reading, and we're not compliant, so we have to fill in, and that's kind of where I was legislatively in my research.
Trustee Odermiller, you are correct.
Okay,
In 2019, House Bill 3 required us to implement, and at that time we came to the board and we knew we didn't have anything for phonemic awareness. That's why we asked for Hegarty at that point in time. And now we're asking for one complete thing to be able to meet the compliance. Yes, ma'am.
I do have something else, but
Yes,
I can wait. Sorry, it's awful loud for me over on this microphone. I do also agree with Ms. Wagman that an 8-year is a long commitment in curriculum and instruction, and as I stated, it's HB 1605 has now removed the use of, and with the governor's signature just recently, we are no longer able to even use Lucy Calkins, Fontes and Pinnell, the units of reading and learning and all of that. And we are in a situation where 8 years with that change in 24-25 school year and $3.7 million for a patch to get us through to the next one, that's a lot of money for us to be committed to and to spend when we are seeing a serious, nationwide, we're seeing states outlawing what we're using, and we're now in that boat. So I do have concerns about that. I mean, I'm all for it, and I agree. You know, you've already heard me talk, and you and I have met and talked about phonics. So we do have something in place, right? And we don't have enough, but we have it in place that is approved.
We do, but in order to get the materials for every teacher in the district would cost us $4.7 million.
In addition to what we already own. And is it also crossover for the methodology of teaching? Is it also compliant with science of teaching reading?
So it did meet the commissioner's list, but I want to point out that I'm here representing the teachers. And although it made the commissioner's list, it did not make, when they picked the material in 2019, they didn't want it. That is why they chose for one teacher copy and student subscriptions. They wanted readers in the room at that time. That is why we don't have what we need. It also did not make even the top 3 this turnaround. So I'm here representing the teachers and what they want based on their literacy survey, because that's what they took into place. Not only the feedback from this particular adoption, but the feedback from the literacy survey stating what they wanted for materials. So either way, in order to get compliant for this one component, we would need to put some kind of money. Point taken, the difference between 2.4 million and try it for 4 years versus the 3.7 million or the 4.7 million for into reading to get all the materials for teachers, that's all important for us to decide. I also did want to address that House Bill 1605 we would, because you mentioned those materials that we have in our school district, we already know that those will not be used to teach phonics instruction. They will not. However, HB 1605 only addresses phonics instruction, so that is 2 of the 5 literacy components, right? So the 2 of the 5 is the phonemic awareness and the phonics component. There are still pieces like our comprehension, our early literacy skills, and also our vocabulary, that there are other supplements, not the phonics materials, that do address those needs. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that those materials that we use for phonics instruction, the ones you mentioned, those would no longer be used in our district.
Okay, so you're saying Lucy Calkins, Fontes, and Pinnell and all of that will no longer be used in our
phonics instruction. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
they'll be continuing to be used for the methodology of teaching reading.
Well, there are components of things, for example, the Teach to Teach, the comprehension skills that you might use a read aloud lesson, right? That might be used by one of those publishers.
Okay, and then my second question is, you said that, I'm just going to simplify it down to into reading.
Yes.
Into reading would not be used for phonics?
Oh, it would be. Into reading has all the components, but in order to shore up the district to have it, it would be $4.7 million.
Okay, but in another year, we're going to have to make a complete shift in curriculum away from Lucy Calkins. We're going to have to be compliant in another area in 24-25. And if we commit excuse me. If we, see, that's a hard pill to swallow. If we're going to commit $3.7 million this year and have a change overall in reading in curriculum, and it's going to cost us, let's just say, another $1 million, not that that's anything to balk at, I'm not trying to say that. We'd be almost throwing away, we would be throwing away $3.7 million this year for a year. Now, I 100% agree with the teachers. We need to simplify and streamline, and I loved in Benchmark how they had those kits and sets and everything. But I also like the idea of teaching the phonics and the total decoding, phonemic awareness, and everything in one program. And I'm not saying it's into reading is the right one. I'm just saying, is there not something we could use this year to patch us over the patch that the state is giving us? Is there not something we could use without an investment this year that could get us through to the change in all curriculum, and we could evaluate all curriculum, apples to apples, what we're going to need, and spend that money more appropriately versus having 3.7 this year, having a contract for 8 years or 4 years, and then changing for 24-25.
Right. So I just want to make sure that I understand. So what we are requesting right here is an all-encompassing phonemic awareness phonics program. That is what we would be adopting here. So the whole revision of the language arts, I'm not sure of what we're at 2024, 25. I do know that the whole adoption for proclamation for the new whole language arts will not be until 2030. So I'm not sure, I can't speak to the 2024, 2025. I could speak to what we're required to do right now, which is our phonemic awareness phonics component, the 2 out of the 5. So here's just something for us to consider. If we want to put a pause and we don't want to, then we could do a couple of things that the commissioner has said that we can do. We can write the lessons, which we do not have the staff, and I would probably need about $3 million to pay staff to write that and create it. Or we could supplement what we currently have, which is Words Their Way, units of phonics, and which is Fontes and Pennell components, which is what we have shared with you back in February is not sufficient. We already know there's gaps. We know that that has caused gaps of instruction, not continuity in our district with our teachers, people not even understanding that we have to teach phonics every day. So there is a need for us to do something to implement today.
The state isn't providing anything for free of use, for us to use free of charge that would be the phonics component?
It is not. That what is provided from the state that is said to be free is Amplify, however, their phonics is not free. That was one of the publishers that came to talk to us with our teacher committee, and they gave us the amount per subscription. So they have a literacy program that's free, but the phonics component is no longer free, and we would have to pay for it. So either way, we have to pay for something or create it.
Is it a nominal fee in comparison to $3.7 million for a year?
I'm pretty sure they're all about the same price to be able to, and I don't think she gave us a number. Did she give us a number? No. We'd have to price it, but I mean, if we want to provide it, that's something we could consider as well.
When I contacted the TEA on this, they gave me a link, and I went and looked, and there was no price associated with it.
So the link that was provided was the link to the phonics list, and I'm just going based on the information of the publisher we talked to a couple weeks ago, and they gave us, they told us it would cost.
Yeah. A question, Dr.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
So just to make sure I'm comfortable with what we're about to approve here, you guys are saying that the 8-year commitment is $3.7 million, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all. I'm sorry, for the full 8 years,
yes,
correct?
Mm-hmm.
You guys believe, you and then your fellow educators and all those who worked on this program feel confident of a commitment of 8 years and at the dollar amount, the total contract value as presented?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all right.
And you said that there's nothing as of right now, but there is. HB 1605 states that we can no longer use 3 queuing methods and balanced literacy in teaching reading. So that means, and it's compliant, and they're giving us till 24-25 to be compliant in that. And SBOE is now working towards fixing what's that going to look like. So I again just think it would be a wise idea to be very careful about spending $3.7 million on something that I'm pretty certain is not going to be the case next year.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President?
My question, the literacy survey, you mentioned a literacy survey. Where was that driven from?
That was something that was requested from you.
From the board, right? So we
yes.
asked you to go do a literacy survey and ask the teachers, and this is what they're coming back and saying this is what they want.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the 3.7 million, that is an upfront cost?
That would be, yes.
That's not amortized over 8 years, we pay it now and it's good for 8 years?
Absolutely. The only difference would be is that they don't guarantee growth. So I just want us to think when we grow 3 elementaries in a year, we need to add whatever that amount would be for those elementaries or allocations, or 3 first grade teachers at this school, that does not include that.
Okay. I just want to make sure, we asked the teachers and the teachers said this is what they'd like, and so, okay.
Move the vote, Mr. President.
But Dr. Upshaw, going back to 2019, you said that you went to the teachers and that the teachers chose, so we don't have what we need. Explain a little more about what happened in 2019, because I don't understand exactly. You said we're covering 2 of 5 literacy components with what we currently have, is that right?
Well, we cover all the components with the resources that we have right currently in our district. But the one resource that's not continuous and has caused for some inconsistencies and maybe even gaps of early literacy skills that are needed in phonics and phonemic awareness, I would say would be the phonics and phonemic awareness adoption, because it's inconsistent and it depends what schools have what grade levels have what, and because of growth, not all teachers even have the kits that they need.
And you said in 2019 the teachers chose, so we don't have what we need. And I'm by no means picking on the teachers, but I did ask back, I don't know if it was last meeting or the previous meeting before that, if any, like, who makes up the committee that you went to and got all this feedback and came up with this option?
So just like we did this similar process, there are surveys that go out to all the schools. The difference there would be we would have had a campus contact for each campus, and there would have been teachers have more time to do the survey, and then there's a district focus group that comes together with professional staff, and then they move forward. So they do have, let's say for example you're the first grade team, you do have the subscription, the materials, and student subscriptions for the first grade team to share, but you don't each have one. So then that provides, so they have the resources, they have materials in addition to supplementary materials. But what happens is, what we receive feedback is teachers want easily ready-made, and because of prep time.
So in 2019 they didn't want that?
It didn't have it. Any of the materials that we received and what they chose out of all the materials that had it, I would say that was their number one choice. But even still today, since it's still on the list as compliant, it was not even in their top 3 choice. So it's just something for because what you get in benchmark compared to what you get in Into Reading from the teacher feedback that I'm representing, this is what they've chosen to be able to teach this component.
Thank you.
Yes, you
Dr.
got it.
Upshaw, I have just one quick question. In the survey that was presented to the teachers, you said there were 3 groups that were on it, the benchmark and then 2 more, or were there multiple options presented?
They were all presented. Sorry, I don't want to make you dizzy. So all of these publishers came to the open house, right? That we had, the showcase is what we like to call it. And then the online materials were also sent to them so they could look at online, and then all of them were available at JET for them to see. So out of these publishers, their top 3 that we brought forward were Benchmark, Reading Horizons, and Amplify, those 3.
Last question. Yes. How is this being paid for?
That would be something we would request.
But I meant, like, where would the funds come from?
Local budget.
Okay, so it's coming from the general funds, not from allotments or from saved funds or from...
That's something we'd have to figure out behind the scenes, whether...
There's not IMA money available. That's I think really the question, right?
I'm sorry, Dr. Noel, what was that?
There's no IMA money available, so instructional material allocation from the state, that's not available, so we would have to fund it from our general budget, yes. If I can ask just a clarifying question of my own, I'm sorry, can you go back to the dollars, just to, the final slide there that you showed? Of the costs here, just roughly, what is a breakdown on material acquisition versus sustained subscriptions? Is all of this just to purchase the materials, or are
All of it.
or what would be the breakdown as far as materials versus subscription?
So the materials, you receive all of this for
Okay.
every year.
Okay.
So you get the self-contained kit, the resources, and the pre-made, the instructional resources that are pre-made. They don't have to print, cut, any of that. They also have lesson books and that contain their instruction on a full set of decodables. They also get little workbooks. I think that was something that was real popular of their Reading Horizon, so they get consumables for the children to be able to work it.
Mm-hmm.
They also get the online digital portion and an online digital piece that could be used in work time that you don't see here, but that comes with it for every year for the subscription.
So that's a
through the
subscription
Every
base.
year you get the little decodables and you get the consumables for every child that enters into CISD stores.
And are they locking in for whatever the length of the contract? So let's say we picked a 4-year, we picked an 8-year. If we pick an 8-year, are they locking in the cost of the kit at today's price for the entire 8-year window?
They are, yes, sir.
Okay.
But I just want to say, point taken. And since I'm the person, as far as the 4-year, 8-year, and the 8-year being a big commitment, the teachers would be happy to have anything, right? So if it is something that we were, of course, our druthers were to have something for 8 years. But if it's something as a board that you recommend that we reevaluate in 4 years, totally agree. We could. I mean, I'm sure they'd be happy to have something. And then also to the 24-25 comment and feedback. If we're being allotted a pause, I just want to reiterate the urgency of how important this piece and this continuity, and what our teachers have told us is they don't have what they need. So either way, we have to get them something to teach this component for next year. Because
So Dr. Upshaw, just going back to 2019, did we not want, was the phonics portion what was missing from what was purchased in 2019?
No, it's included in the inter-reading component.
So that's what we currently have?
Yes, we just don't have enough. So we were to stick to that adoption, if that's what we chose, in order to get the kits up to par in our school district. To get the amount of people that need the kits, we need 1,509 additional kits, so that's $4.3 million for next year.
Is that at the same price that we paid for?
Actually, those kits are about 2,000. Let me see. Those kits are about 2,000.
But my question is, did they lock that cost or that price in when we made that purchase in 2019?
No.
So we didn't go that route.
So basically, we're talking about $600,000. Is that what we're talking about? The difference between something that is only one component versus getting us everything that would make us in science of teaching reading. The difference between 3.7 and 4 point, you just said
4.3.
Yeah.
So the rubric, it made the commissioner's list for the phonics component. So not for the entire 5 components of literacy.
It does. It meets it. I looked online. There's a link that HMH Into Reading has all of it.
It's not what our teachers prefer, but I understand.
As far as the funding of it, I know that we're going through our budgeting right now.
Mhm.
Nothing has been finalized. We've had a couple of budget hearings on it, and I believe that in some of the presentations, we've got some money set aside to fund this out of our budget. Is that?
I don't believe that we currently have a line item in the budget, but this is one of those areas that, if we had to go into fund balance, it's a one-time issue. It's the appropriate use of those extra funds if need be. And I would offer just, as Dr. Upshaw has mentioned, if we have concerns about the 8-year, and the fact that we are in a point right now where money is very tight, and we all are aware of that. perhaps to consider the 4-year makes sense, and it does allow us to move forward, allows us to get into compliance, and I am sensitive to the fact that we asked the teachers what they wanted.
Yeah.
We went out of our way to do that.
But I just want to make sure they're presented with other options too. That's the only thing I'm concerned with, is that, like what Trustee Obermeller was saying with the research that, with the gap and that the phonics, we're not sure how much additionally. I wish that were presented as well, so we could really get the teachers' feedback on that particular portion of it.
Especially when I would add that the teachers are aware that their raise is going to be pending, our cash flow right now, so that would affect decisions, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a couple of questions.
1 second, Stacy. You're next.
All right.
I was going to say, did the teachers ever go back to what we have currently and say, we can patch this over for the next year, as long as we have, or did they want to shift into something new, focus on that, and utilize something that everybody was going to be on the same page with?
So if patch what they currently have to supplement phonics,
Yeah.
or we didn't even really consider that option because we had already said that it wasn't something that we were satisfied with, and it wasn't going to meet what Trustee Odenweller had said, which was aligned with science of reading. So as far as when it comes to phonics. The into reading that we're saying to move forward, they were presented with that, and that's, I'm just going to reiterate, that is not what they requested. That's not what they prefer. They have it now. They don't use it all the time for everything, although it's there for them, and it did not make the top 3. So it's just not teacher preferred.
Okay. And then let me, if I could just follow up real quick. And so what we have currently in all of our shared shelving, we still wouldn't, even if we purchased, we still wouldn't have all of those kits per classroom, or is that the $4.1 million to get everybody their own classroom kit?
Yes, ma'am. That would be the additional 1,506 per our estimates. We might be a little off. So let's say 1,500 additional kits.
Okay. Yes. Okay, because if I remember correctly, one of the reasons we talked about getting them their own kits was not only so that they had ease of access in their classroom, but because of our new safety issues and requirements, we can't have teachers in and out of their classrooms to go into the shared rooms. Is that?
That is correct. Right. And I think one thing back to 2019, it's a proclamation for K-8 literacy, which is huge. And the amount of money that was provided for that committee and what they could do with that money, it wasn't substantial. And that's one thing we realized with IMA money and funding. Sometimes to get everything what teachers need, it's not enough funding. And at that point, teachers were like, we'll take portions of this, but we want leveled readers. We want these classrooms. I mean, they wanted so many things in addition to that. And so we still met the adoption, but still got them readers for their kids. They wanted books in their children's hands. So that was the choice that they made at that time.
Thank you.
Ms. Chase.
Yes, hey, thanks. So I had a first question on timeline. So we've heard you state a couple of times, Dr. Upshaw, that we need this for the first day of school. Does Benchmark even have the materials available to provide us to meet that deadline?
So we asked today, and they have enough, because after we've quoted and given them numbers, I don't want to say guarantee because that word is big, right? But they have said that they do have the materials to be able to give what Conroe ISD needs, because that was a worry for us to train, implement, and unpack what they had. So yes, they have shared with us today that they have enough to provide for Conroe ISD.
Before the first day of school?
It's what we called today, because we had a feeling that someone would ask that question, so we went ahead and called.
Great. And then my next question is, I understand the obligation we have, right, to meet the commissioner's requirements, and I understand that this is Benchmark as a preferred choice from the teachers, which is super important for me. But can you tell me, is this going to improve student outcomes?
It would significantly improve student outcomes, especially in your House Bill early literacy goals that you receive updates on, where children are actually tested and monitored on early literacy skills such as phonemic awareness and phonics. So you would see the results there.
Okay.
We saw
And then
significant I apologize.
sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. No, we saw a significant change and improvement when we implemented Hegarty, which is the phonemic awareness component. And this would be all in one, right? The continuity of phonemic awareness and phonics being all in one for teachers.
Okay. And then my third question is just around the risk that Trustee Odenweller brought up, that things can change next year. How are we contractually protected in case of a change? Like, what if the commissioner comes down and says, oh no, this is not acceptable anymore? Like, could we get out of our contract if it no longer meets like the state standards, or how does that work to protect our risk there?
If the benchmark itself would not meet the state standards, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So it met their standard to be able to provide this piece. To go through the rubric, which was substantial, it should meet, according to the commissioner, the standard for the phonics and phonemic awareness piece through the duration of as long as we teach that. Now, if your concern would be, if we committed to 4 years, could we go back and say, benchmark, we're sorry, we only need 1 year, the commitment's the financial commitment?
No, not just on like a whim to exit, but if for some reason the standards changed, or what Trustee Odenweller was saying, that we would have to realign our choices or something to new requirements, would we be protected contractually to be able to exit from that agreement if it no longer met the requirements in the state?
So if we are required to meet the agreement or to be to those standards of the other 3 components of literacy, which is the comprehension skills, the early literacy skills, and vocabulary concepts, we could then look at our current materials and then see how those meet that. Because I imagine it would be the same process as they do now, right? Because they told us that we could look at our current phonics programs right now and that we could basically patch it and submit it to the commissioner for approval. So I'm sure that through this whole process, we could look at everything we have and be able to say, this is what we currently use, and this is how that meets the components of science of reading. So I'm sure they would give us that same grace that they're doing for us, that they would do for us now, right now in phonics.
If I could add, just, and we could have Rick look at the contract as far as getting out of the, what we typically have an out of any agreement, of ongoing agreement like that. But the real financial risk is once you've bought all the materials, you've bought all the materials. So you're gonna the financial risk really comes in the fact that you've bought the stuff, right? Also, just want to mention that Mr. Rice has indicated that we have, as we've compiled money in budgets that have been unspent this year, we actually have funds available in this year's budget to be able to complete this purchase.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up.
4 years or 8 years?
8.
We have funds available that could get us to the 8-year mark.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I could follow
Thank
up
you.
on Ms. Chase's statement or question, you asked about it if at the end of, let's say, whatever, next year, 4 years, 3 years, whatever it is, would we still be compliant? Yes, this program is compliant through 28-29. I looked online on TEA. It has been approved and compliant until then. However, our other reading methodology materials that we have, we are going to have to replace them. And that is where my concern comes in, because if we spend $3.7 million right now on just the phonics component, and let's just say that we are, we already are, we're mandated for 24-25 to change our methodology. That means another purchase of materials that are outside of this 3.7 million, where we, and I'm not even saying it's into reading is the answer. I hate the idea of you all having to patchwork to get us for this 1 year. I wish we had looked at it and tried to figure it out so that we would be more following what we needed to as far as, or where we're seeing things trending in that regard, so that we wouldn't be putting this right now, doing that. But I am concerned about that.
So can I seek a clarification? When we mean methodology of teaching, you mean the 3 queuing system, correct?
The 3 queuing, the units of studies, the whole part, all of Lucy Calkins and all of Fontes and Pinal.
But when we say methodology of teaching, I'm curious if it, because that's big. So
The scientific studies that support
which
how...
which is the controversial thing between the 3 queuing system on how phonics is taught.
Well, on how reading in general is taught. I mean, the whole science of teaching reading is completely different from Lucy Calkins, Fontes and Pinal, units of study, and all of that.
So the one piece that is the contingency in how it's taught is the way that we teach phonemic awareness and phonics, which is this whole we're not compliant, is the 3 queuing system, which is what is in phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. Not in how we teach you how to be a good reader and look at author's purpose.
So
you can so that's I
can
think
I ask a clarifying question, because I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping up. So pardon me, I'll apologize ahead of time, because I'm hearing 2 different conversations and I want to make sure that I understand. Because your interpretation of the House bill is that Lucy Calkins and Fontes and Pinal are not allowed to be used as phonics instruction in the future.
Yes, sir.
Your interpretation of the bill is that Lucy Calkins and Fontes and Pinal are not allowed to be used for reading instruction.
Anything. They're being removed 100%, yes. Because if they don't do phonemic awareness and they don't do phonics, as was just stated, and their ways that they teach the reading skills are not through phonics and not through phonemic awareness, and they use 3 queuing and balanced literacy, then what are we using it for?
Well, we're using it for early literacy, vocabulary.
I think we're misunderstanding.
Yeah, okay.
I
know I am, so please help me.
There are 5 components to literacy instruction.
Right.
5 major components: phonemic awareness, phonics. That's the 3 queuing system. That is what's being said is the difference in the controversy in the world right now, right? Then there's comprehension skills, early literacy skills, and vocabulary development. So it's being mandated that through the science of reading and all the teaching, through educator prep, everybody going through the Science Reading Academy, all this stuff are the 2 of 5 components, which is phonemic awareness and phonics. That is what we're asking to not use what we currently have and to say no more, we don't use that, we're not using that, this is what we're using to teach phonics and phonemic awareness. But to say that a reader needs to learn how to be prompted or how to do a read aloud, when I'm modeling reading in a reading lesson to teach you about author's purpose or plot or setting, that has nothing to do with early decodable reading skills that are covered in phonemic awareness and phonics. You can use a lot of supplements to be able to do that. So I am not aware of any list we're saying we're not using these specific publishers at all, because to say that the units of phonics, for that is a Lucy Calkins tool, that will no longer be used. But a units of reading mini lesson that teaches about author's purpose doesn't have anything to do with queuing system or phonics or phonemic. That could still possibly use because it meets the grade level of the T. And just to clarify, in our district, out of the units of reading, we use 1/4 of the actual supplement in our district to teach. We have written the rest of the lessons ourselves. We showed you. She was very proud when she saw that. We've done a great job. So if they were to ever to pull it, we only need another 1/4. But so we don't use it to its fidelity. Just to say we don't use it from cover to cover. We
So
don't.
Dr. Upshaw, are you saying that we do have the staff to supplement something?
No, ma'am. I mean, to supplement, we'd need probably
like a missing component. You said we've written. I'm sorry. What did you say we've written?
We've written for the comprehension and the vocabulary piece and the early literacy behaviors. The 3 pieces. Okay. But the phonemic awareness and phonics piece, if we had to write that, I would say we'd need probably about, I'd say a good couple $1 million to get it written. Because it's and time.
By August 9th.
All right, can we
the
Call
most
the vote.
important thing we do. I appreciate all your passion around the topic. I do.
So,
We
I
call
do
the
have
vote,
another
Mr. President.
question, Dr. Upshaw. Did you want to go?
No, ma'am.
I thought
Go
we
ahead.
call the vote. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead,
so
Ashley.
Can
earlier
you
you said
repeat the
that-
motion?
I will here in just a second. I'm going to let Ms. Duncan ask her question.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you, President Hubert. So earlier you said that phonics weren't being taught on a day-to-day basis. Explain that a little more, please.
That I didn't mean it that we're not teaching on a day-to-day basis. What we shared with you in February, and when we talked to you about science, CISD reads and writes and dyslexia in our district, what we've realized, because we have a variety of resources out there for phonics, is that there's a misunderstanding of the fidelity of implementation on a daily basis. And there's inconsistency of the materials. So much to it could have led where teachers think we don't teach phonics on a daily basis. And we do. We should. It's part of our schedule.
And do they understand that now, that that's been communicated and...
Through the literacy survey around phonics and us being able to move forward, I would say that moving forward there will be no question whether it should be taught every day.
Thank
It
you.
is required, yes.
And there's one choice versus multiple choices.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm gonna read the motion one more time. As I understand it, we have a motion to adopt instructional material for phonics grade K through 5 for an 8-year commitment of the basically $3.7 million. That's my understanding of the motion that was made and seconded.
Correct.
All right. Okay, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion show by the uplifted hand. 3. All opposed by the same sign.
Stacy voted yes. I don't know what those
Is there a lag in?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Stacy had a yes.
There is.
Okay, so Stacy, to confirm, you are in favor?
I'm in favor. Yes, there's a
Okay,
lag.
so that was, okay, and now let me do the against the motion one more time, please. 2, 3. All right, motion carries 4-3. Thank
you very much.
All right, moving to item 7A, consider and adopt the selection of construction management at risk for the new elementary school project to benefit the Caney Creek and Oak Ridge feeder zone, and authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute construction management at risk documents.
All right, Mr. Foster.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. It's my pleasure to bring forward you consideration and approval of the selection of a construction manager at risk for a new elementary school project to benefit the Caney Creek and Oak Ridge High School feeder zones. Just to be clear, this is a 2023 potential bond project or a project in the future that, should we have a positive bond election, would need to start very quickly to meet the timeline that it needs to open. So our local board policy requires CEM at risk to be the contract delivery method for every project over $100,000. Accordingly, we published an RFQ for a 2-step selection process. We had 9 construction firms respond to the RFQ, 5 of which the law limits us to no more than 5 be invited to the second step or the pricing portion of our selection process. Following the grading of step 1, we did invite 5 firms that are listed in your board item to step 2. We did receive pricing from those 5 vendors. And after reviewing that with our committee, Marshall Construction Company is selected to be the offer, submits the proposal to be the best value for the district. And like always, we've included the ranking as part of your board item 2. Should we not be successful in negotiating our contract with Marshall, we can move on to the second or third, depending on the difficulty in contracting. But the process is tonight to ask for your approval of Marshall Construction as the selected construction manager at risk.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. Any discussion? I have a question for you.
Sure.
When would the scope of work begin?
Well, the scope of work for the construction manager risk process is really multiple steps.
Understood.
The first step and our first real obligation as district, which is a very small obligation, in this case of about a very small protected amount of money until we've completed the negotiation.
Okay.
But it is a nominal figure for them to perform what is called pre-construction services. That's to work alongside our architecture and design team with the site that's been selected for this particular project, so that as we move forward towards bid day, we're not surprised on bid day by, oh, all of a sudden your project is over budget. So that pre-construction gives us estimates and constructability reviews along the way. So then when we get to the actual need to go into construction, we'll be back in front of you again with a guaranteed maximum price request for you to actually approve the construction. If we don't move forward with construction, again, that nominal fee covers all of our district obligations currently. But we would anticipate bringing this back to you again for approval before we go shovels in the ground.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Foster, on the contract, first of all, on the school, this is a future possible bond school, correct?
Correct.
What, on the contract, what will we be on the line for if for some reason we don't get the bond passed, which I'd be crying sitting here because we need the space, but what would we do? What happens with that contract?
So we would elect to terminate out of convenience. So our current obligation is for the pre-construction services, which is that nominal fee. It is a very relatively low 5-figure fee, so it is not a huge burden on the district. And we get the benefit from it because we will, even if the bond were to not be a positive result, we would have a design that's fully vetted in the can, ready to go to bid as soon as we have the authorization to do so.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I call the vote. All those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On for our capital improvement update. Mr. Foster.
And thank you for the opportunity again to bring you up to speed with our capital improvements underway throughout the district. I'm going to begin with our safety and security 23-24. Again, this is the 2019 bond referendum district-wide safety and security project. It is this is the last installment, runs through the end of the calendar year 2024. At the completion of this project and the other 2019 bond projects, we'll have met all of the safety and security upgrades that were accounted for in the 2019 bond referendum. This project is on schedule, and things like the rave system that you heard about earlier this morning, this is 100%. Everything we've done for the last number of years is 100% compatible with that system, so there's no additional upgrades that are going on for these projects. But the project, like I said, is on schedule, and it is scheduled to run through December 2024. Our new campuses, so Moorhead Junior High, the new Moorhead Junior High School campus is substantially complete. Furniture is being set up in that campus currently, and it is ready for students when they return from the summer break in August. Again, Hines Elementary, their furniture deliveries began today, and there's a few things the contractor's working on, but it is essentially complete as well, and will be ready for students when they come in for the summer break in August. Bartlett Elementary, this time next year we'll be talking about it being ready for students, but it is on schedule. You can see from the picture there the building slab is progressing nicely. Next big milestone is when the structural steel arrives and is scheduled to open in August of 2024. At Conroe High School, our major renovation of the Conroe High School project, I apologize, the picture's small, but if you look right there in the middle, there is buildings that are no longer there that used to be there. So the point of no return for the what we know is the rotunda and the annex has been reached. So that demolition is in progress. The rotunda is completely gone. Over the next couple of weeks, the annex will be gone as well. And the new parking areas and the building pads for the new fine arts and the new kitchen for that facility will be underway post-haste. That project is currently on schedule and will be there through the end of the calendar year 2025. At Oak Ridge High School, the overhaul of Oak Ridge High School and our CTE center there for South County. CTE center is substantially complete, so it'll be ready for students when they return from August. The work in the middle of the campus, which is completion of the overall the Oak Ridge High School campus, is underway nicely. So if you walked in that building today, it is a complete change from what it was even to the end of May. So there's a new Main Street corridor that's been opened up from front to the back of that building, which will help with student management and all the other functions in that campus, and the overhaul of the air conditioning systems that we'll be able to complete with this first phase are wrapping up nicely for this summer break. In the picture you're looking at here, you can see the earthwork for the road improvement around the campus and the practice fields that go along with that road improvement are underway nicely. The goal there is to complete them and get them ready for school when it starts in August as well. Candy Creek High School is our 6A upgrade for that campus. You can see from the picture here the weight room is furnished and they're beginning to use it for summer programs this summer. The contractor's on that site wrapping up that project as we'd anticipated, and they'll have it ready for students when they return from their from summer break in August in 2023. At Collins Intermediate, where we completed the gym over the winter, we're doing the mechanical systems overhaul there this summer. You can see the new pumps and equipment that are installed. Currently, that project is moving along very nicely, and we'll schedule for when staff return and students return in August as well, so it is currently on schedule. At Giesinger, likewise, that building is getting a mechanical system overhaul, a little bit more intense than Collins got, but you can see the picture there. It's a classroom with new ductwork, new single zone boxes for each of those classrooms. The chillers and all the other equipment are arriving daily, just as we'd anticipated. That project is also on schedule, and it'll be ready when the staff comes in, and the air conditioning running full speed when the students return for August for start of school. Now, Veterans Memorial, the rebrand, the carpet in classrooms is underway currently. The material's been delivered, the classrooms being cleared out, so we're beginning to rebrand that campus as from the former Moorhead Junior High to Veterans Memorial. It is underway. You can see the picture there is a stabilization that's occurring for the driveway extension that will help us get the queuing line much larger to help manage the traffic in that area. Again, all those things are running really well, and the project is scheduled to be complete for when the students return in August. Now, our new maintenance and child nutrition facility, the project is wrapping up this month. We'll be moving the child nutrition and maintenance staff into this building over the summer. We're receiving the final components in the next week or two. We anticipate substantial completion right around the end of June, maybe the first week of July. That project is wrapping up nicely, again, on schedule. East County Transportation, that project is on schedule as well, scheduled to run through December of this year. You can see there the paving is done, the building pad is done. We're waiting on the steel to arrive, so that building goes vertical. North Transportation is in very much the same shape. They're not quite as far along on the slab, but slab will be completed before the steel arrives. Steel is scheduled to arrive in July. And again, that project is on schedule, scheduled to run through December of 2023. And that's our update.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Foster. I'd like for us to move into item 8 and then also 9 and have a break before legal, if that's okay with everybody. I think we can get through that in the next 20 minutes or so. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, moving on to item 8A is consider award of RFP 23-01-01 catering services. Mr. Rick Reeves.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. Tonight we'll be presenting the next 4 bid items for your approval. Each RFP has been issued through the district's online e-bidding system to registered vendors and advertised multiple times in the Conroe Courier and the purchasing website. In addition, each RFP meets a competitive bid requirement set forth by the Texas Education Code 44.031, as well as the district's CH legal and local policies. The intent of these bids is to supplement and expand the current pool of vendors for catering, instructional supplies and materials for the classroom, CTE materials, supplies and equipment, and supplemental contracted educational services and professional development services, which we bring forth for your approval semi-annually each fall and summer. This allows the district to continuously create opportunities for our local vendors to become awarded, as well as allow our staff to have more options for legally compliant purchases. At this time, we request your approval for agenda items A through D.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions? Once again, these are from items A through D, correct? We're not including E.
Correct.
I motion E too.
Any questions for A through D? Okay.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. What is their timeline for approving items B, C, D?
Mr. Reese.
I'm sorry, I'm not
What is
following.
the timeline for the needed approval for items B, C, and D?
Just at your discretion here, so.
I would like to request more time to review those vendor lists.
Okay.
Is there a request to remove item B from the motion? To vote on that?
No, sir, there's a motion.
Oh, you want to move all?
B, C, D.
Oh, you're asking to remove all B, C, and D.
If there's
Okay.
no urgency to any of those 3, I'm fine with A.
Okay, so that's just your concern as well. Okay, so the motion still stands, but your concern is that's your concern. Okay, any other thoughts or questions?
But Dr. Knoll, aren't B and C, those are materials that they need to start for the next school year, correct?
They could be. What this does is it gives more options for our people to purchase. And it doesn't obligate us to buy anything from any of these people. What this allows is to have more competitive options on the list for our folks. So they're gonna still purchase what they need. This just may remove some options for them is what they would have.
So wait, I'd like to clarify that,
Yes,
please.
yes.
So you're saying they can purchase no matter whether we approve this list or?
They're gonna purchase from the list that's already been approved. There's already an approved
Right.
list,
This is-
yes.
We've already a pool, this is.
That's
yeah,
good
these are
to know.
additional. These are additional.
So
Yes.
these are additional?
Correct.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
could we get a side, I guess that would, then I would like to have a side-by-side view of the current list.
Okay.
Against the, because that was not provided to me unless I overlooked it.
No, we've been doing this for 5 years, so that pretty extensive list in all 4 categories, so.
So each year you prepare I
Twice a
guess
year.
explain a little bit about the process to me.
Twice a year we open this up and add to our pool, so there's new vendors who aren't awarded on any bids, any co-ops, so it allows our folks to have more choices to get quotes and get better competitive pricing, so.
Okay, so it's about the competition, is there?
Correct.
Okay.
So let's just give an example, and you might help me, because I'll probably get this wrong, but let's just, like, I'm looking at the award C, for example. CTE, materials, supplies, and equipment. They buy gas for welding machines. So I don't know if there are any additional vendors on here, but that's the kind of thing that there may be an additional vendor that would sell welding
Or
gas.
specialized products, especially for CTE, that this is our only option to get them awarded, so that way we can make those purchases, so.
I got lost on, I think I got stuck on item B today in my preparation, so,
So in instructional supplies, materials for classroom, that could be the same thing. It could be, that could be something as simple as paper.
Software, site licenses.
or as serious as supplemental instructional
those
material.
things.
Right.
Yeah, I had that come up a couple of times with a CTE teacher that was asking me, hey, well, how come we can't have more vendors because they're waiting on a product and another vendor has it, but they can't get it because it's not on the approved list. This would help them, say, that person doesn't have it, but this vendor does, and they're on the approved list, they can get it and not have to wait. That's what these are, just allowing them to have more access to more vendors.
And this is a common thing for you to do every year?
We do it twice a year.
Okay.
Correct.
So once in the summer months and once in?
Late fall, usually November.
Okay. All right, Stacy, anything? I don't want to overlook you over there. Okay, very good. I'll call the vote.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Just to reiterate, this is not an obligation to buy anything. This is only an addition to the approved list of vendors.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll call the vote. All those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Abstain.
I don't feel like I've.
Enough info?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving to item E, which is consider award of RFP 230206, award letter jackets.
Thank you, President Hubert. Finally, we're requesting the board considers awarding RFP number 23-0206 for award jackets to SSR Jackets, also known as Monk Holdings, for an estimated annual expenditure of approximately $50,000. Following the same process of the other bids this evening, this request was for vendors to provide firm unit prices for various award jacket packages for our students. Vendors were also asked to offer pricing for various add-on items available for purchase, such as a sleeve type and various patches and things of those nature. 3 vendors have submitted a response. Pricing shall be firm for 1 year through June 30th of 2024, automatically renewing annually for 2 additional 1-year terms through June of 2026. The proposal was evaluated by our secondary education administrators and reviewed by the purchasing department. Best value offers are recommended for board award as noted on our attached analysis. Funds for these purchases are provided in the general fund, and at this time I request your approval.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Anybody still wear their letter jacket? Yes, go ahead.
I don't still wear my letter jacket. I just had a quick question. I don't have one. A quick question. So is all of that purchased, are the letter jackets purchased all at once, like at the beginning of the year, or is there a certain amount that, like, as the year progresses?
They schedule it throughout the year with each department, so it's athletics or academics, and so then they schedule it with the vendor. The vendor comes in and does the sizing, and then they do the order forms.
So that's like to cover the whole year. It's
Correct.
not, okay,
Correct.
perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Typically, there are like 2 different waves. Like there's a beginning of the year wave for kids that maybe lettered at the end of last year, academic letters from the previous year, so that wave will come in, and they order October, they come in at Christmas, and then you do a spring wave for everybody
Got
that's
it.
lettered in the spring.
And this is enough to cover all of that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I call the vote. All those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, moving on to item 9A, consider approval of resolution regarding the 2023-2024 employee compensation plan. This is
All right,
Mr. Rice.
Mr. Rice is going to come forward. I know this is a topic that we spent quite a bit of time talking about our workshop, and there's more discussion to come, so we'll turn it over to Mr. Rice here.
All right, good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. Tonight, it is my pleasure to recommend that the board approve a resolution regarding the district's employee compensation plan for 2023-2024. As discussed in the June 6, 2023 board workshop, the Texas legislature has not allocated funds to allow Texas school districts to provide employee raises for the 2023-2024 school year. The district is hopeful that the legislature and Governor Abbott will provide funds to schools to give the over 700,000 Texas public school employees the raises they deserve for the hard and important work that they do to teach the children of our state and to ease the burden employees and their families feel due to inflation. We have seen several districts within our area adopt pay plans with significant raises. Each of these districts has a fiscal year that starts on July 1st. This means that they must adopt a budget before the completion of any special session Governor Abbott may call to address this pressing issue. As a result, these districts have been forced to adopt deficit budgets, some with deficits in excess of $169 million. Our fiscal year begins on September 1st. We have time to wait and hope the governor calls a special session to address this pressing issue, and that when he does, the legislature will provide funding for teacher raises. At the June 6th board workshop, the board received pay raise scenarios along with associated costs from TASB. Because no funds have yet been allocated by the legislature, the district has not adopted a pay plan for the upcoming school year, as we feel it is fiscally responsible to adopt a balanced budget. The 2023-2024 work schedule for some employees began July 1st, 2023. Until the legislature appropriates funds, district employees will be compensated in accordance with the 2022-2023 pay plan. This resolution will allow the district, should the legislature allocate funds, to adopt a new pay plan based on funding allocated by the state to retroactively pay employees for the work performed during the new school year beginning July 1st, 2023. At this time, I recommend your approval.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? I appreciate this resolution. You know, we've obviously, for all of us, we all care deeply about the teachers. Everybody on here does, and it's a difficult time right now, and to go into a deficit budget is very difficult to ask and to show any type of just fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers out there. So this resolution allows us to go back, and if and when teachers are getting some type of a pay raise through the state, that we can go ahead and pay them. So I appreciate the resolution personally.
If I could add, maybe, I think it's important when we talked about this at the workshop, I think it's important that our employees know that we expect to give a raise. Yes. That is completely the expectation. I know all of you are on board. You all expressed that. They may not have seen the workshop. I want to make sure that they heard that. That's the expectation. At the same time, we have discussed at the workshop the potential of a retention stipend early in the fall, to try to at least offset some of this inflationary pain that our employees are feeling, and you know, with is something that we will communicate over the coming months. But perhaps we can bring forth a retention stipend for your approval in July, so that at least our employees know that that's coming. And then with this resolution, they know that once we do approve that raise, we can go back and back pay them. And I think that's the commitment that they need to hear and know that where we are.
Okay. So. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, I call the vote. All those in favor of the motion show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries unanimous. Let me move my water. All right. Item B, consider approval of the 2023-2027 annual financial audit proposal. All right, Ms. Garza.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. It is my pleasure to recommend the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2027 annual financial audit proposal. This proposal is to extend the relationship with Weaver and Tidwell to provide professional audit services to Conroe ISD for an additional 5-year term. The proposal was presented to the Audit Committee at the May 10th meeting for their review and comments. Following the review, the Audit Committee voted unanimously to recommend the approval of the proposal. The audit fee will remain unchanged at $90,000 for the first 2 years of the proposal and increase by 2.75% over the remaining 3 years to a final amount of $97,500 in the last year of the agreement. Sarah Roberts from Weaver is here this evening if you have any additional questions regarding the proposal. If not, we recommend your approval.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? I know you came a long way. You'd love to stand up, I'm sure, and come to the podium and answer questions. No, we've been
She
very
really
good.
wants to leave, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I'm just guessing. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I'm just kidding.
All right. All those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
All right, and item C, receive financial reports.
All right, moving into our financial update for the month ended May 31st. First statement is our balance sheet. The balance sheet shows the district's assets, liabilities, and fund balance. Presented here is the general fund, the debt service fund, child nutrition, and self-funded insurance. The next statement is our income statement. Shows the district's revenues and expenditures. Total revenue in the general fund year to date, $551.6 million. Total expenditures of $402.5 million. Our 2019 bond referendum update, estimated to complete just over $51.8 million. Total expended and encumbered, $599.4 million. Our self-funded insurance update, as anticipated, May was a busy month for the plan. As we're moving into the summer months, we did have a deficit of the plan for the month, expenses of $5.5 million and revenue of $4.4 million. We are still trending very positively for the year with a surplus of $3.1 million. So if we can hold steady over the summer months, we should end up in a positive note. But we'll wait and see how that all flushes out. Our investments as of May 31st, total par value is $631.6 million. The pools are yielding 5.22%. Wood Forest 5.28. Our combined portfolio is at 4.89 compared to the 90-day T-bill at 5.14.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Garza.
Thank you.
All right. I propose we have a recess.
And if I may, I believe that Ms. Chase is planning to excuse herself at this point as well. Is that still the case, Mrs. Chase?
I'll confirm in just a minute. You're taking a break, right?
We're going to
Yes,
take a break
we
and
are.
then move to the hearing following the break. We'll do a roll call as we return back to do the hearing, and if you are with us, then you're with us, and if you're not, we understand. So.
All right.
All right, we are back in session, and we are going to switch our agenda for a second, and we're going to go on to item 11, which is our executive session. The board will go into a closed session pursuant to section 551.071, 551.076, and 551.089 of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Any action, vote, or decision of the board with regard to any matters discussed in closed session will be made when the board returns to open session. The time is 8:28. The board is now back in session. The time is 8:37. There are no actions coming out of our executive session, so we will move back into item 10A, which is conduct a hearing and consider the Level 3 appeal of the Reconsideration Committee's decision related to the 2015 Hunting Mifflin Harcourt Texas Biology textbook and the 2014 McGraw-Hill Aquatic Science textbook. Dr. Knoll.
All right, thank you very much. Item 10A is an appeal brought pursuant to Board Policies EFA Instructional Resources, Instructional Materials, and GF Public Complaints. The complainant, Dr. Alex Harris, a community member. Dr. Harris is appealing the decisions of two reconsideration committees that considered reconsideration requests Dr. Harris filed relating to portions of two high school science textbooks, the 2014 McGraw-Hill Aquatic Science textbook and the 2015 Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Texas Biology textbook. For the record, the following board members are present: Mrs. Dungan, Mrs. Wagaman, Mr. Hubert, Mrs. Nelson, Mr. Williams, and Mrs. Odenwiller. Mrs. Chase has excused herself from the meeting at this point. The board, Dr. Harris, and the administration's representative, Dr. Chris Hines, have received exhibits 1 through 17. These documents will be part of the record of this hearing. The district received 3 instructional materials reconsideration requests from Dr. Harris, one dated February 13th, one February 21st, and finally one on February 29th of this past school year. The 3 reconsideration requests pertain to portions of 2 high school science textbooks. 2 of the reconsideration requests relate to the 2015 Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Texas Biology book, and 1 reconsideration request relates to the 2014 McGraw-Hill Aquatic Science textbook. In his request for reconsideration, Dr. Harris asked the district to, and I quote, supplement both the aquatic science and the biology textbooks by teaching faith and beliefs of creationism on the origin of life as an alternative hypothesis in a parallel class with equal class time, allowing the students with the guidance of their parents to choose either the atheism or creationism class on the origin of life for biology and the origin of the universe for aquatic science. Second point, and I quote, include in the biology curriculum for life the faith and beliefs on life without racism from the major religions of today: Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Confucianism. If the current curriculum on evolution, which is based on the religion of atheism, is retained, its racist history must be exposed. In accordance with local board policy EFA, the district appointed reconsideration committees to review the portions of each textbook to which Dr. Harris objects and to determine if the objected to material meets the board's selection criteria for instructional materials as outlined in policy EFA. The district combined the 2 reconsideration requests pertaining to the 2015 Texas Biology textbook and appointed 1 committee to address both reconsideration requests relating to this textbook. The reconsideration committee denied Dr. Harris's request and determined that board policy EHAC legal, basic instructional program, required instruction secondary, requires the district to teach the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, commonly referred to as the TEKS. The information to which Dr. Harris objects is part of the science TEKS, which, like all TEKS, are adopted by the State Board of Education after they receive input from educators and other stakeholders, including parents and community members, and outline the state standards for what students are to learn in each course and grade. Accordingly, the committee determined that they did not have the authority to modify the district's biology curriculum to include items that were not included in the state-adopted TEKS as Dr. Harris has requested. The reconsideration committee for the 2014 Aquatic Science textbook determined that the material in which Dr. Harris objects was not material that is taught in district classrooms because the material is not included in the TEKS for aquatic science. As a result, the committee did not grant the relief Dr. Harris requested. Dr. Harris appealed the decisions of both committees. The basis for his appeal of the biology textbook is, quote, origin of life can only be explained logically by religion, and the text presents scientific hypothesis which can never be proven, and our faith and hope of the religion of atheism. Also, the RC is unaware of the racism behind the Darwin's Evolution Theory. The basis for Dr. Harris' appeal of the Reconsideration Committee's decision related to the aquatic science textbook is, quote, Conroe ISD High School Aquatic Science Textbook in Chapter 5.1, Beginnings, pages 117 to 119, teaches the Big Bang Theory, which is called out in the high school science teaks in the following sections. Section 112.33 Astronomy, 112.36 Earth, Space, Science, and 112.48 Astronomy. Dr. Harris's appeals were combined as allowed by Board Policy GF Local Public Complaints. Dr. Chris Hines served as a Level 2 hearing officer for the appeal. Dr. Hines upheld the decisions of both reconsiderations committees. Dr. Harris then appealed to the Board of Trustees. The issue before the Board of Trustees is to determine if both textbooks meet the selection criteria set out in Board Policy EFA. The Board must base its decision on Board Policy, the evidence contained in the exhibits, and the statements made by the parties. Members of the Board, please indicate by raising your hand if you have reviewed the record in its entirety. Let the record show that all members have raised their hand. I will now ask each member of the Board whether he or she is able to serve as an impartial member of the Board in the reconsideration of Dr. Harris's appeal. Any member not able to serve in such a manner may say so and ask to be excused. Mrs. Dungan?
I would
Yes.
like to be excused.
Be excused? Okay. Mrs. Wagaman?
I'm able.
Okay. Mr. Hubert?
I'm able.
Mrs. Nelson?
I'm able.
Mr. Williams?
I'm able.
Mrs. Odenweller?
I'm sorry, it was too far back. I'm also going to be excused on it.
Okay. Because Dr. Harris brought the appeal, he will present his argument first, followed by Dr. Hines. Each party will have 20 minutes to make their presentation. This is not an evidentiary hearing, and there will be no cross-examination of witnesses, and neither party can reserve time. Are you going to have time on the screen? Okay. We will have our time on our screens around the room. I would remind both parties that all comments must be made from the podium, as this hearing is being recorded. Do we have any questions from either Dr. Harris or Dr. Hines before we get started? Okay. Dr. Harris, you'll have 20 minutes to make your presentation, and you may proceed to the podium.
Thank you, Board, for giving me this time. And I want to assure you that I'm not a Christian nationalist. I'm not sure what that means, and Paul will help me understand what that is. I'm just a disciple of Jesus Christ. Dr. Hines, in his Level 2 decision denial letter dated May 18th, said, Texas Education Code requires that Texas public schools teach science. So the question today is, are you teaching science, or are you teaching the faith and beliefs of the religions based on atheism? I spent about 90 minutes with Dr. Hines at the Level 2 hearing, showing with evidence in detail that CISD was indeed teaching the faith and beliefs of the religions of atheism. And when he never denied or refuted what he said, and even in his denial letter, there's not one line that says, hey, what you said was wrong. Rather, his denial letter had excuses. Oh, the SPOE did this, or the TEECs, the trustees, bought into this. Our community elected you to do what is right for our children. We want you to protect them from any form of indoctrination. So I'm sorry, if that's going to be an excuse at the end of the day, I'm really disappointed. Because ultimately, it's not about excuses. It's about protecting our children. There are two areas of concern that I'm concerned being taught at CISD under the guise of science in a cosmology and biology book. I know there's a little bit of confusion on the books, but the content is there. It's in different places. And it's all documented in the documents I shared with you. The two areas are the origin of the universe, and the second is the origin of life. and its subsequent evolution by natural selection, which is the science of racism. And I will explain what that is. So let me start with the origin of the universe. In our 8th grade STEM Scopes textbook, on page 99, I have the quote in the materials you received. The Big Bang Theory is the most widely accepted theory to explain the origin of the universe. According to this theory, the universe began as a single tiny point smaller than an atom. Can you imagine this, all of this? Smaller than an atom. And it had so much matter and energy that it exploded into this universe. Now, the question is this science? Can any of you show me the science behind it? Can Dr. Hines show me the science behind it? Anybody. Take anyone in this world. Can they show me that? Is that science or is that faith? Because I know God is infinite. He has infinite energy. And that's my faith. But when you say there's a point that appeared out of nowhere and then exploded and created this universe, that's not science. That violates real science, which is the first law of thermodynamics, which says, hey, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So if you want real science, there's real science for you. And all of a sudden to say, where did this infinite energy point come from? And we teach that in our school textbooks to our children, 8th graders, whose prefrontal cortex is not fully formed. So to me, if you say that's science, that's a lie. And you're teaching a lie to our students. Then from there, of course, when you start telling a lie, it goes to another lie. And that goes on to the origin of life by the abiotic process. Now Vicky in his book, he says, hey, the origin of life is a puzzle. Meaning what? He doesn't know. And he lists a whole set of hypotheses, which are theories, which are guesses, and none of these, I will, have created life. And there are paradoxes in that theories. They contradict each other. There are contradictions. It shows that it's impossible. And one of the paradoxes is our genes are the instruction manual for our body. Hidden inside almost every cell in your body is a chemical called DNA. DNA is a short form sequence section of, gene is a pardon me, I don't read as well as you. Gene is a short section of DNA. Our genes contain instructions that tell our cells to make molecules called proteins. Proteins perform various functions in our bodies to keep us healthy, and so on. Now, to create proteins are required to assemble RNA DNA. But proteins are needed to make genes. But genes are found within the RNA DNA. You've got a contradiction. You can't do it. But yet we say, remember the chicken and the egg we used to joke around with, which came first? It's like that. And you know, the atheists are so desperate because they need that first cell. Because then they can kickstart the next level, which they're very comfortable with. You know, Richard Dawkins, who's an apostle of the atheism, you know, you asked, hey, how did it all begin? You know what he said? He says, well, he thinks aliens came and seeded this life, this first cell on this earth. And it's amusing to me, a man can believe in aliens coming and dropping the first self-sustaining, self-replicating cell on earth, but he can't believe in God. We'll come to that more. So to me, if you call this science, with these two critical lies, origin of the universe, origin of life, they move on. This is an area they are very comfortable with. Evolution. Now Vicky in his high school biology textbooks outlined the theory of evolution based on Darwin's Origin of Species. Darwin was a Britisher, and it's very important to remember who he was. He was a Britisher, and I'll come back to this later. And he developed his theory in 1959, and then he moved on. And, you know, he he looked at the world and he said, everyone outside of the white race, they're savages. That's in his book, Descent of Man. Now let's pause for a minute and realize how blind, and I have to say stupid, Darwin was. Anyone who's racist is blind and stupid. You want to argue with me on that? Go for it. This man, a few centuries earlier, see, if you look at the world, all the affluence of the world was on the east side. India, China, people of color. And if you take Western Europe, they were savages, especially you go further west. And this man says the whole world was savages, and this is the basis of his whole theory. Voltaire made a clear statement. He's a French writer. The French were a little bit more advanced, a little bit more educated. They said, hey, you know, I'm convinced that everything that has come down to us from the banks of the Ganges, astronomy, astrology, metaphysics, and we were savages, and the Indian and Chinese people were more civilized. And so, what is interesting about Darwin's theory, and this is important, his whole thing is man and gorilla had a common ancestor. You see where this is going? And he thought that the Negro or the gorilla were of the same state. And as the evolution process went, it ended up with this supreme, superb white race. And he was so pleased that, you know, there was a check in society, because he was very concerned. He said, look, about how reproduction occurred. He said, hey, you want to raise like animals. If you want to breed dogs, you don't take a sick dog and mate it with a healthy dog. That's his analogy. He was talking about breeding. And he said, definitely, you know, with progress with time, that was his thinking. Now, the question is, what triggered his racial foolishness? The world was completely agnostic to color. And I say this because William Shakespeare in the 1600s wrote Othello, a black man, a person of color, marrying a white woman. Because that would not have happened if this pervasive, offensive, disgusting philosophy existed. Now, where did this come from? And a lot of people, this is the key. And this is the key, and I have to apologize because my people, the Indian people, are the root cause for this. Because this is the caste, the color variation, and the color distinction, and the color racism all came from the caste system. I don't think too many people know that. Because how did it come about? Evidence show that the caste system, based on skin color, was developed in India around the 7th to 12th AD. But it was not very effective. And it was among a group of people called the Rajputs. The British, when they came in, the Rajputs went under their suzerainty. And with the help of the British, when they took over the Rajputs, they saw this mechanism of oppressing, how to exploit people. They were fascinated. They thought this was great. This is a clear way we could make a distinction between them and us. And also the Rajputs convinced themselves, hey, you and I are the same stock. We were separated 3,000 years back. A. MacDonald has a book out on it. He said 3,000 years back. And we come back together. And they loved this. And with that, what happened is they translated that document of the caste system into English. And this was done in 1794. And he started publishing this stuff. And you can see how this whole pervaded the world society. And what is the effect of all of this? It's very sad. Supreme Court decision in 1956. You see the progression, how it goes? There was a black man who wanted to stand up for his rights, who went before the Supreme Court. You know what one of the Chief Justice, what he said? He said, you are inferior. You're unfit to associate with the white race, either social or political. And you're so far inferior, and you have no rights that the white man can respect. This is coming from our Supreme Court, mind you. And he says this, the Negro might justly and lawfully reduce to slavery for his benefit. Those are not my words. This is the Supreme Court justice. This is what we're teaching without exposing its roots. And then it goes on to Margaret Sanger, and you know all about her and the African American Project. Oh, you know, as you go down lower in this chain, they have no control, and we want to create that perfect race. And there are things that they said, all these people are just step higher in brain development than a chimpanzee. And here, all this flows with evolution. And you can see it right out of your textbooks. Go back to the common ancestor and trace it out. That's how they taught. And this is what we teach. And then we wonder why we have so much racism in our society, because you're laying that foundation right in the schools, and that needs to change. So in conclusion, hey, I think I'm making good time. I don't have a Christian agenda, because that's wrong. I cannot. I'm a Christian. When you challenge me, I'll tell you my faith. You tell me why I believe, I'll tell you why I believe. And you want to question my faith, I have no issues. But I respect our Constitution. It gives perfect religious rights. I am against any kind of deception. When you teach these teachings under the guise of science, that's deception. That is not science. And Dr. Hines, you're welcome to show me wrong, or any of you, or you can get the best experts and prove me wrong. I would welcome it. You can't. I know you can't. These are faith. To say all of this came out of one point, a simple point. Because if you don't have the universe, you don't have the origin of life. You don't have the origin of life, you don't have evolution. It all crumbles. So we've got to get down and say, this has no foundation. This nonsense of teaching has to stop. Now, if someone wants to believe in it, I respect that. I stand back. I have no problem. Because you can classify religious thought under three categories. Very simple. Monotheism, believing in one God. Monism, which says there's one reality. And atheism. You can classify all the religious thoughts under these three categories. They're mutually exclusive. And you can teach that. And I have no problem. But don't teach it in a science class. That's deception. Teach it under social studies, which is where it belongs. The text only call out monotheism. It doesn't even call out monism. Though you look at your textbooks, it's filled with monism and deceit and deception. Lay it out there. Lay it before the students. Tell them, hey, these are the fundamental, foundational religious schools of thought. You decide. Talk to your parents. But teach the truth. No deception. The deception has to stop. So what I'm saying is, I don't want to hear excuses. I know you don't have the capability of doing certain things, and that's what Dr. Hines said. But I expect you to stand up, and together we fight this thing to bring about the changes necessary. You cannot say, I don't have the authority, I don't have this, I don't have that, and do nothing. That is unacceptable. I expect you to stand up and say, you are right. Oh, if I'm wrong, please, feel free to tell me I am wrong. But if I'm right, I expect each and every one of you, whatever you may believe, you're a monotheist, monist, or atheist, it doesn't matter. We must present the truth. We must present it without any deceit, without any deception, so that every person can make up their mind and say, hey, okay, I choose this path. I made a very cognizant, conscious decision. But deception, I'm dead set against. And you should be too. You must be. You must be. And so this is very easily solvable. And it's a constitutional violation. To teach one deceitfully and bias, the courts are very clear. And we must fight this. So there's no excuses. Because you have been elected to teach our children. You are. So we have to hold you accountable. We have to. You can't make excuses tonight. And that's what I saw in all my denials. I love Dr. Hines. I mean, he's a friend. But sorry, your excuses don't cut it. I'm sorry. And so I believe, as we expose this, you're facing tremendous, tremendous racial problems in your schools. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Tremendous. And through education, ignorance, dispelling ignorance, that's what we need to do. So I hope you will make the right decisions. If you need any clarifications, feel free to ask me. You want to challenge what I say? I love it. Hey, truth always prevails, right? There's only one version of the truth. I may not see it perfectly, but as we strive together, we will find it. But a lie has many flavors, and we don't want a lie. So that's yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Dr. Hines, you may now proceed. You'll have 20 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. There's several things I want to go ahead and reiterate, and Dr. Harris touched upon some of these. One, our district is required to teach the TEKS. Each year, you annually certify that we do so and that we have the materials to do so. As a K-12 Texas Public School District, we are required to teach science. The district is teaching the science TEKS in science classes. New science TEKS and instructional materials are scheduled for the 2024-25 school year. The appropriate venue to present objections to and arguments for the inclusion or exclusion of TEKS lies with the State Board of Education, not with the local school district. Dr. Harris indicated to me that he understands this when we met, and to further add evidence of this, he has presented his concerns regarding the curriculum to the State Board of Education on several occasions. Yet he chooses to, by his own admission and for his own reasons, to bring to you for your consideration an item that is not within your purview to change. If we change a TEK, it is no longer a TEK. And that is what the State Board of Education does. Conroe ISD does not add to, we do not take away from, we do not modify the state-approved TEKS. As the district is required to teach the TEKS, and modifying or removing TEKS undermines and circumvents the State Board of Education and their processes for developing the state's curriculum, selecting instructional materials to implement that curriculum. TEKS are developed through thousands of man-hours based on input from a large range of constituents that includes teachers, parents, religious leaders, and experts in the fields. The instructional materials currently in use, which were purchased in 2014, were selected from the approved list of materials adopted by the State Board of Education in accordance with board policy and are appropriately aligned and adopted. As noted in my Level 2 response, Dr. Harris's objections are based solely on the ideas expressed in the materials. Board policy EFA local states that a parent has the right to exercise control over instruction only as to his or her own child. Dr. Harris is not the parent of a child that attends a CISD school. Board policy EFA local also states that no challenged instructional material shall be removed solely because of the ideas expressed therein. and the basis for this reconsideration request are the ideas expressed in the referenced science textbooks. In summary, you do not write or rewrite the state's curriculum. The instructional materials in place were selected in accordance with board policy from the list of state-approved materials in 2014. And Dr. Harris does not get to circumvent the authority of the duly elected State Board of Education, the Texas Education Code, and local board policy, and remove materials based on his own personal beliefs. I request that you uphold the decisions of the Level 1 reconsideration committees and the Level 2 hearing officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. This time, I'll ask if any board members have any questions for either party. Okay, hearing no questions, if the board chooses, it can now discuss the matter. Because this hearing is held in open session, if during the discussion any board member should need to obtain legal advice, the board can adjourn to closed session under Texas Government Code Section 551.071, obtain legal advice from Ms. Gladys, and then return to open session to make its decision. Is there any discussion at this time?
I'd like to have that discussion with Ms. Gladys. Okay.
So at this time, the board will adjourn to closed session under Texas Government Code Section 551.071. The time is 9:09.
I don't know. Are we providing feedback now or after closure?
He asked for questions.
Yeah, now we're going to go to closed session, then we can come back and do.
And you can do that if you
come back
want.
and have comments after.
Because I definitely have comments.
Okay.
Okay.
The board has now returned from its executive session. The time is 9:20. If the board chooses, it can now discuss the matter.
Dr. Harris, I just have a couple of questions. Hi. Thank you for this. I appreciate all of the work that you put into it. It's clearly something you're passionate about, and we really appreciate you taking the time to investigate. Question is, what is your desired outcome from this? Just to clarify.
Sure. My desired outcome is these teachings, which are part of the faith and belief of the religion of atheism, don't belong in a science class. Science class, we teach science. They belong under social studies. Move it to social studies, where we teach major world religion. And this is part of the major world religious schools of thought. Monotheism, monism, and atheism. They're foundational schools of thought. Move it there and teach all these teaks. I'm not saying anything against the teaks, because they have a right, but teach it there. Because if you teach it under science, this is not science. That's a deception.
I don't know if this is a Carrie question or Dr. Hines question, but what would it look like if we moved things like the things Dr. Harris is mentioning to social studies?
So, Dr. Hines, if you would want to come up and answer that.
It would be changing a teak. Essentially, we'd be moving and adding teaks into another subject. So two things on that. One is it wouldn't remove the obligation to teach it in science. And two, we would be adding teaks into another subject, which we've tried to avoid simply because our teachers do not have enough time to teach the teaks they have without adding to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I comment on that?
Sure. So as long as it's okay with me.
Because if you move it out of science, it'll reduce the load to teach that. So it'll actually reduce the load on a science teacher. But of course, in social studies, that teacher will have to have that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, I did have comments. I've kind of gone through this. I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to write down all of my comments to make sure I got them all out. Because I've heard Mr. Harris multiple times in past level 3s as well as public comments. So I wrote some comments down. I wanted to make sure I got them all out. So I believe that this exercise is an egregious waste of district's time and resources. I believe Mr. Harris's logic is grossly flawed at best and is riddled with racist ideology. In this level 3, as well as in his past level 3, as well as in his ongoing public comments, I feel that Mr. Harris honestly believes that he is set apart in some sort of righteous crusade. In reality, I believe that Mr. Harris operates on a baseless, self-proclaimed doctrine. Ultimately, Mr. Harris has found the school district to be his playground or platform for attention under the pretense of protecting our kids, our children. I find that this doctrine is simply an outcry for attention, but ultimately it's the real threat to our children. That being said, I just will not entertain the charade that's being played with the back and forth arguments relative to our district and the TEECs and our Mr. Harris's religious beliefs. That's all I have.
Any other comments, board members? No, sir. It wasn't a question.
No questions. Don't have a question.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Harris, I wanted to ask, did you state that you have, before the SBOE, the same comments and questions in regards to the TEECs and the Big Bang Theory?
Yes, I have been. They've been very receptive because this whole concept of racism, the connection of how racism came into the world society, the Jim Crow laws and all of that, and that has really had a significant impact there. The unfortunate part is a lot of these TEECs were frozen some time back, and I have better things to do. I'm not trying on some, as Mr. Williams commented, and I'm not on some, wasting anybody's time. I genuinely have an interest in our children. So, but I think it comes down to this, that what are we teaching our children? Is it the truth? Now, if Mr. Williams wants to refute what I said as not the truth, I'm all ears. But it's just his own personal, I don't know what it is.
To be clear,
any
Mr.
further?
Harris, I did not say it wasn't the truth. I just honestly believe it's your truth. I don't think it's reality.
So challenge me on what I'm saying is wrong.
I don't want to entertain.
Yeah,
that's.
Yeah.
Any other questions from any board members?
So, is the case still open with the State Board of Education, or have they already given you their answer?
No, it is just an ongoing thing, just like I came and presented to you, because I'm part of this community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm raising a concern here.
Yes.
And I'm not going to stop on this, just to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
I will, because you see, one of the things is our country was founded based on faith. Our founding fathers, you cannot say they were Christians, but they believed in a creator. They believed that our nation, that everyone was created equal. That's what built this nation. But where are we now? Very opposite. We have rejected God in our curriculum. We rejected him out, and we say, oh, we're not equally made. That's what evolution is about.
Any further questions? Yes, Mr. Hubert.
Just real quick, Dr. Harris, I appreciate you as well, and I think that you need to consider to continue your push with the SBOE and the Texas State Board of Education and all of those folks. My position now is of a legal position. It's not a matter of do I agree or disagree with your theory. I don't think that's the question that's been asked of any of us, is do we agree or disagree with your theory. The question that's being posed to us is, do we have the privy to change the TEECS program at our level? And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask Ms. Gladys is, if we were to do something like this, what are the ramifications? Well, there's no precedence. The ramifications could be, it could be a lack of funding. It could be a lack of being able to certify that we follow TEECS. It could be a lack of the ability to graduate kids under the State Board of Education. There's a lot of ramifications to do something like this, and I do not see that we have any legal position to make these types of changes. So I want you to understand it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. It's a matter of is the argument that you're having, can it be solved at this level? And my understanding from our legal advice and our legal counsel and the presentation that we've gotten from Dr. Hines and the research that he's done as well is contrary to what you'd be asking.
Can I comment on you?
No, sir.
No.
I can talk to you afterwards.
No, yeah.
I
Any?
have
Go ahead.
just a few comments. I appreciate your presentation, and in the research that I started doing, and was really studying where SBOE is at with the TEKS, and I did find in 2019 they changed the word evaluate, and they changed it to compare and contrasting theories. And so I was looking through the 200 plus page document that was provided to us, and I couldn't find anywhere in there, and that's why I was asking what your intent was, because if we are currently going with the SBOE recommendations to compare and contrast Big Bang Theory and other theories of where we began, the origin of life, I believe. And so I wanted to get clarification if we're using that, the evaluate and contrast, or compare and contrast, if we're given that. I don't know if anybody has any of that information.
Dr. Hines, if you, or Ms. Cardall, or Cheryl. Oh, Cheryl's over there. Hi, Cheryl. You're hiding.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
There was a time when we took the 2014 TEKS and they were streamlined, and in that process they removed and simplified the verbiage from analyze and evaluate to the compare and contrast. And so we of course do follow the guidance, and that was the shift, and that's when it happened. And so we of course follow the guidance exactly as it's stated in the TEKS, the current TEKS.
Okay. So in those specific, thank you for that. So in those specific instances that Dr. Harris is referencing, when there are those 3 specific TEKS, where they're mentioning the Big Bang Theory, they are comparing and contrasting other theories in there, like creationism and.
Where there is information that is scientifically sound, then those different options are presented.
Is creationism scientifically sound?
I don't think it's for her to answer.
Well, I'm just asking the contents of the chapters that are referenced.
It would not be included in the textbooks that have been approved by the State Board of Education.
Okay.
Those textbooks do not include information.
So what are they comparing and contrasting then with the Big Bang Theory?
Big Bang Theory, there are multiple, I don't have a book in front of me, but there are multiple different viewpoints on
Okay.
And that's why they're not like fact at this.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, and
yes,
just,
please.
I'm thank you. I'm good.
Go ahead.
But just in just kind of wrapping that up, I from what I understand, we as board members can write content, and so that's sort of where I'm kind of at an impasse, because that's where I'm in an impasse. I do have just a quick paragraph that I copied from an article that came out. Instead of evaluating scientific theories, Texas students must now compare and contrast theories regarding cellular complexity. Rather than evaluating scientific explanations for the origin of DNA, students must now examine them. Scientific explanations include theories and hypotheses. Cargill, SBOE member and also on the science committee, said, adding in the 2009 requirement that students examine all sides of scientific arguments was found confusing and dropped from the TEKS standards. The new compromise language addresses both the need to streamline content while encouraging critical thinking by students. SBO Chair Donna Ballerich said in a statement cited by TEA, the streamlined standards will go into effect for the 2018-19 school year. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. The parties have completed their presentations and discussion is concluded. The board will now make its decision regarding whether the portions of the 2015 Texas biology textbook and the 2014 aquatic science textbook objected to by Dr. Harris meet the selection criteria set out in board policy EFA. The board can uphold the decisions of the reconsideration committee, order any relief the board believes is appropriate, or ultimately take no action which would uphold the decision of both reconsideration committees. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I motion that we uphold the level 2 recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion to uphold. Is there a second?
The motion.
We have a second.
And that's considered take no action, correct?
No, it's
uphold.
it's a
It's to uphold.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's an affirmative action.
Okay.
So we have a first and a second. The motion is to uphold the reconsideration committee's decision. Any conversation or discussion on that? All right,
Listen,
this time.
I do believe that atheism is a religion, so I want to get that out there.
Okay. All right. At this time, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented? Okay. And those opposed? Okay. All right. The board has voted 3-1 to uphold the reconsideration committee's decision. Dr. Harris, you will receive written notice confirming the board's action. The district thanks both parties for their attendance at the hearing and for their presentations. The hearing has concluded. I will now turn the meeting back over to President Hubert for the board's next item on the agenda.
All right, very good, thank you. So our next item is to take requests for trustees regarding future board agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add for next month?
I would like to add a discussion,
Sure.
President Hubert,
Yes, ma'am.
regarding ideologies in our schools.
Regarding ideologies, anything in particular so we could
The presence of ideologies in our schools.
the presence, the board, I'm sure the staff is going to want to prepare for that. So what exactly?
You got to get rid of the people.
Presence of ideology.
To get rid of the people.
Well, I don't want to discuss it. I just want to know what ideology, like in general, just ideology in general.
Yes,
So if
all ideologies.
If we put that on there, that'll be acceptable to you. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Ideologies taught through the TEKS or ideologies of personal
ideologies.
We got to get rid of them.
Personal ideologies in our
I got a
schools.
discussion. I want to discuss the timeliness of these meetings. I want to put that on the agenda.
The timeliness?
Timeliness of them. The amount of time we exacerbate on what I deem to be very, very much so things irrelevant to what we were called or appointed to do.
Okay.
Can we put that on there?
I will add it to the agenda. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Yes, I did have something.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to discuss discipline. We had a great presentation from Dr. Hines, but we really didn't discuss the discipline issues going on that we're seeing in our district and what we can do to improve them going into the new school year.
Okay. Discipline in our schools. All right. Anything else? Okay. We have a motion to adjourn. All right. We have a motion. Second.
Second.
All right. No vote needed.
No.
You're good. Thank you.